hear Sean and Harold as well.
He's towering.
Okay.
I'll hang up with you.
Okay.
Okay,
Sounds
let's try
good.
some testing. Okay. So,
Okay.
Marika, why don't you hang on for a second? Sean, can you hear me?
Ken, can you see me and hear me now? How am I doing?
That's coming through the speakers, right? Yeah, it's kind of low, but it's coming.
Okay, what can I do to change the volume?
Well, I would just hang out where you are for a second here.
Okay. Boy, you guys are really,
One, right?
really
This one has
bailing me out.
gray anyway.
I'm so much better, but I think 6 hours of my leg hanging there, Sandy, I would be just a wreck. You guys have been just so flexible with me. I appreciate it. Okay, should I keep talking? You know, I'm in politics. I can do that. I'm also a high school teacher.
Yeah, I was just gonna look for.
Spit chat, spit chat, spit spat.
I'm not used to a tablet view. This is slightly different.
Keep talking, Sean. Check, 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 check,
Yeah.
check, check, check. Checkers, chess, check, check.
Sean, I am now sitting in the mayor spot.
Check.
Can you hear me okay from here?
Wow, I can.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay,
Very good.
All right, so Sean can hear us. We can see him. We can hear him.
Wow.
And I can hear all of you too.
Operating with fire, people. Operating with fire.
Excellent. She's got him hidden up there.
I should be fine.
Sorry, he's hidden behind. He's back here.
I should be fine next week to be in for the Longmont Housing Authority and the early council meeting. So, but every day it just gets a little bit better. But I noticed my leg, my left leg that I had the surgery on, is so much emaciated after years of my right leg pulling the weight. So, really do appreciate it.
Okay.
Raise a hand or raise a hand.
Yes.
Okay,
Both
raise
of
a hand
those
like
things.
that.
Does D have, is D in our org? They're in a different place.
Yes, and D will be jumping on
Oh, later.
Yeah, he had another city at 7, so.
Oh, okay.
And so we may need to help him. But
Do you need me to hang out and wait for him to come on?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We'll be able to, you're gonna, Harold, you don't mind giving it a break when it's before ballot issues? So we have to, so we can let Lisa do it.
Okay.
Jim's gonna reach out to.
So just mute my mic now.
Yeah, I'd say go ahead. I think we're all set. Thanks for the testing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, you
well,
guys are wonderful.
Hang
Thank
out
you.
for
Thank you.
12 minutes.
Right.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
No, I'm here all night.
Me too.
I know. You poor people. You're welcome. Thank you so much. Oh my God, I kicked myself out. Right. Can you hear me now? I accidentally kicked myself out. Did I? Can you guys hear me? You can? Okay, I accidentally kicked myself out. I was getting rid of the Zoom meeting connection. Woof.
I would now like to call the August 8th, 2023 Longmont City Council regular session to order. The live stream of this meeting can be viewed at the Longmont City's YouTube channel, also at longmontpublicmedia.org/watch, or on Comcast channels 8 or 880. May we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Hidalgo Faring.
Here.
Councilmember Martin. Councilmember McCoy.
Present.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilmember Waters. Here. Councilmember Yarbrough.
Here.
Mayor Peck.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anyone wishing to speak at first call public invited to be heard will need to add his or her name to the list outside the council chambers. Only those on the list will be invited to speak at the first call public invited to be heard. Speakers who do not place their names on the list will have your opportunity to speak during final call public invited to be heard. And anyone wishing to speak on second reading or public hearing items are asked to add their name to the speaker list for each particular item. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes, and we would like your name and address. So I just got the list. The first thing we need to do is to approve 2 months' meetings of minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the July 11th, 2023 regular session minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. That was moved by Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez, seconded by Councilor Martin. Let's vote. Do you want to give us a verbal? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Councilor McCoy. Did you get all of those, Crystal?
They were all, it was unanimous.
Okay, so that was unanimous. There's a glitch every week, I've decided. So now can I have a motion for the July 25th, 2023 regular session minutes?
So moved.
So that's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez, seconded by Councilor Hidalgo Faring. Let's vote.
Mayor, can you do verbal vote, please?
Yes, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That passes unanimously. Do we have any agenda revisions? Crystal?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. Do we have any submissions of documents and motions to direct the city manager to add agenda items to future agendas? And I see Councilor Yarbrough.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to make 2 motions, if I may, regarding reconsideration of the city council meeting on July 25th, denying the 150 Francis Street annexation application. The first vote, I would like to, first to reconsider that vote. I'll second that motion. Yes, that's
Okay.
the first motion, yes.
Okay, let's deal with that one first.
Okay.
So it's been moved by Councilor Yarbrough and seconded by Councilor Waters to reconsider the vote on 150 Francis Street annexation. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote to reconsider. Crystal, should this be verbal?
Verbal, yes,
All
ma'am.
those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, and that passes unanimously.
No.
Well,
No.
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 Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor McCoy. What was your vote?
No. My vote is against
Okay,
reconsidering.
so that does not passes 6-1 with Councilor
because she voted against it as well.
Oh, I'm sorry, because I can't see this.
No, yeah.
Yeah,
So we did a verbal vote. They all voted yes, and Councilmember McCoy and I said no.
so that passed 5-2 with Counselor Hidalgo Faring and Counselor McCoy opposed.
Yes. Okay. So my second motion, because we didn't have enough time, at that time on the 25th, we had public invited to be heard. So I want to make sure that there's enough notice, because now it will be reconsidered and it's passed, that we vote on, that I move to continue the item on September the 12th at a regular session, so that so staff can be able to give out notice that now it's been approved for annexation.
Okay. Just a moment. So the motion is that we reschedule the vote on 150 Francis Street annexation for September 12th. Is there a second for that? So we're going to move to table.
Second.
Correct. Is that correct, Counselor? Okay. Also, with that, I mean, it's all that motion, but the main reason why I believed in the annexation, but with the consideration of if there's ever development, that everything that needs to be done, that all the standards, design standards and property standards and street safety standards, so that will be approved before there's any development or anything. So like, I know that that property had a lot of buildings, and the grass wasn't kept up, the neighbors were complaining, so the homeowner should make sure that that property is taken care of. And I know that once we annex that property, that will be taken care of, but I definitely wanted to make sure that those conditions are in there. That makes sense. Did I say that right?
More than necessary.
More than necessary? Okay.
So you would like those conditions to be in the annexation proposal?
She's just moving the table. She can.
To September 12th. But I just wanted to give my reasoning as to why I did not approve it the first time, although I wanted to, but because of we had several community members who lived on the same street had issues, and I wanted to make sure that it was addressed, and I got my own research and talked to the people who I needed to talk to and make sure that that will be done.
So I was just trying to clarify what you were saying. So, okay, thank you.
Mayor.
For myself. Everybody else out there probably understood it. Counselor Martin.
Well, I'll second. So there's discussion.
Yes, I was going to say that I think that the second part of what Councilmember Yarbrough had to say is what we will be discussing when we discuss the annexation on the 12th.
And I agreed. I was just repeating what she said to make sure that we all got it.
Okay, so I think we're, yeah.
So
Sorry
I
for
see
the
no other
confusion.
discussion
That's
on this.
okay.
Let's vote for Counselor Yarbrough's motion to table this to the date certain of September 12th. Let's vote. And that passes 6-1 with Counselor McCoy in opposition. Thank you, Counselor Yarbrough. All right, we are now at the city manager's report.
Report, Mayor, Council.
Thank you. You know, I asked Assistant City Manager about this informational item, and she said it was just for information for council to let us know. But I will let you know that anybody who would like to go and read what the information to the residents on the West Nile, the city's West Nile virus prevention program is, you can find it in the packet. And if you can't find it, I know the URL, I'll send it to you. So now we are at special reports and presentations. The first one is a proclamation designating August 15th, 2023 as Habitat for Humanity Day in Longmont, Colorado. Whereas Habitat for Humanity of the St. Vrain Valley was founded 35 years ago on August 15th, 1998. And whereas St. Vrain Habitat has completed 118 homes in partnership with low-income families in Longmont and the St. Vrain Valley, adding more than $38.7 million in assessed property value to Boulder, Weld, and Larimer counties. And whereas Habitat has worked with thousands of local volunteers to build these homes, and whereas St. Vrain Habitat has built an additional 338 homes internationally through its tithe to Habitat for Humanity International, and whereas Habitat continues to build strength, stability, and self-reliance for families and individuals in the St. Vrain Valley. Now therefore, I, Joan Peck, Mayor, by virtue of the authority vested in me and the City Council of the City of Longmont, do here proclaim August 15th, 2023 as Habitat for Humanity Day in Longmont. And I encourage all citizens to volunteer for and financially support Habitat for Humanity of the St. Vrain Valley in its mission to provide safe, decent, and affordable homes to deserving families in Longmont and the surrounding communities. Is there anybody from Habitat here to accept this proclamation? Well, if you would like to say a few words, that would be great, and then we can take a picture.
Mayor Peck and City Council, we're very thankful to be celebrating our 35th year here in the community. It's funny, I look back to our 25th proclamation that we received from you all, and that time we had completed 57 homes.
Wow.
So we've doubled the amount in the last 10 years. That has just been really exciting for us, and we continue to press toward our goal of 100 more homes in the future here. Having just celebrated our 118th home, we're very excited that the 119th and 20th will be coming in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So we'd love to have you come out for our dedication of those homes. And we're rapidly working toward the end of our Mountain Brook development. We're excited and working with the city to get the permits for our next project, which will be 12 homes here in Longmont. And I want to particularly thank City Manager Dominguez because he has encouraged staff and folks from Nextlight to come out and join us in building. So that's been a real blessing for us, and I just want to say thank you. I also want to congratulate the Housing Department on their qualification for Proposition 123 money. I think you all received an email on that. And for us, that is incredibly exciting. It opens doors for us to a great deal more funding for both land acquisition and actual construction. So wanted to thank you all very much for this time, and we'll move forward with the proclamation.
Great, thank you. Should we have a picture together?
Yes.
Sorry.
Our next report is from Project Recovery through Boulder County. Community Service. Is there a presentation for this? Christina Pacheco?
Mayor Peck and members of council, we're welcoming some of our partners from HSBC this evening, Jim Adamsberger and Heidi Grove, and they'll be presenting to you, and stick around for some questions.
Great.
Okay. Good evening, Council and Mayor. My name is Heidi Grove. I'm with Homeless Solutions for Boulder County and Community Services in Boulder County in the Division of Strategic Initiatives. I'm also joined with Jim Adamsberger, who is the Division Manager of Strategic Initiatives, for any additional questions. So tonight we're here to talk about a new initiative that the county has been working on over the last 2 years. And we've been able to scale up, and we wanted to see what's possible in Longmont to bring these services to Longmont from the county. Next slide. So Project Recovery it originally began as a grant-funded initiative through Boulder County in partnership with an organization called Tribe Recovery to add to the housing continuum in Boulder County to incorporate recovery homes. Project Recovery also additionally increases the availability of substance use disorder and co-occurring treatment, as well as enhances peer support services. And since its inception, we've been able to secure additional grant funds, as well as partner with the City of Boulder to enhance our efforts. Next slide. So before we go into the details of what Project Recovery is, I think it's worth talking about what sober living is and the misconception of what sober living is. So sober living is a residence in which individuals who are working on sobriety live together as a community and also engage in treatment services. The long-term aim, is to end the cycle of addiction and transition into self-sufficiency. It is governed by the Colorado Association of Recovering Residents, so it is not a halfway house. It's not a traditional transitional home. It's completely within its own kind of element under the Behavioral Health Administration. Next slide. So a little historical context. So we started kind of exploring what's possible with HSBC in about 2020. Believe it or not, we were doing this during the pandemic. And just really kind of recognizing there is an increased trend in substance misuse nationally, and we see that in our own community. We've all had many conversations about the challenges with methamphetamine and the continued ongoing crisis with opiates. The lack of peer supports across the county, and how critically important that is for stabilizing and helping people transition through challenging situations into long-term stability and self-sufficiency. The lack of treatment services, specifically substance use treatment in the county, has, I think, been well discussed in many different spaces. So really recognizing that that is a huge gap, and then also coupling that with intensive supportive services that are also desperately needed for outpatient. There's also minimal recovery home services in the county, and unfortunately, those services that we do have in the county are for those with higher socioeconomic incomes. So those that need it the most don't have access to these high quality services that they need. And we've also noticed a lack of cultural responsive treatment options in the county. So making sure that these treatment services meet the needs of all cultural barriers, whether it's bilingual, whether it's indigenous, like really embracing those cultural components into the treatment options. Next slide. So we started down this journey during COVID, and the executive board of HSBC tasked staff to stand up a sober living task force to really see what this could look like and make sure that we were aligning with best practices, making sure that we were culturally responsive. And so we did stand up a sober living task force, which met over the course of 6 months. We met weekly. And the representation was pretty broad and expansive because we wanted to make sure that we had very inclusive voices and perspectives in this work. So we had behavioral health clinicians, licensed addiction counselors, service providers, just traditional homeless service providers, housing providers, individuals with life expertise in homelessness, and also individuals who are in recovery. Through that work, we did extensive analysis of what's out there in the community, which is where we saw glaring gaps, what is possible, what partners, who could we look at, and what would a model really look like. So the key findings on your left were the findings that were identified by this group collectively. It's increased, stable, and quick access to housing. We know that housing is a stabilizing factor, whether that's for jail reentry, treatment, behavioral health, which is why we're a housing first community. Fosters a sense of community connection. We also know that isolation is a big challenge, especially with the populations that are experiencing homelessness and also experiencing addiction. Supports education and employment, so really kind of helps bolster up those kind of resiliency factors as they go through their sobriety and transition. Really needed peer supports. Peers are so important, and research has shown time and time again that especially in recovery and those transitioning from the challenges that we see clients, the HSBC sees, really the peer supports make a big difference. And has full wraparound services. So it's not just you go to treatment and then that's it, or you do housing. It's a full continuum, full wrapped container support. And it should be rooted in harm reduction. So when we say harm reduction, what the task force was very clear about is harm reduction is also recognizing that relapse is part of recovery. And having that wraparound group be there to support those individuals when they do make mistakes. And then also harm reduction recognizes that it's harm reduction for community too. And so making sure that the individual is also supported, but also the community at large. Next slide. So after we took these recommendations to the executive board, they were adopted and we were charged to identify funding opportunities. And we just happened to stumble across a Bureau of Justice Assistance grant that was supporting recovery homes and services, which we've never seen BJA do. So we applied and we were awarded on Christmas Eve of December 2021. And the deliverables as identified in the grant were the implementation of evidence-based treatment and recovery services, the implementation of peer recovery, the creation of a recovery community, which is both within the home and then also outside of the home, and establishing the full suite of the recovery home model. So in that grant, we wrote in an organization called Tribe Recovery. They are well known in Denver and Aurora and have been doing this work for some time. They are also, what also makes them really unique is they've fully integrated behavioral health supports. They are licensed by the behavioral health administrator, and they are CCAR regulated, and they also can bill Medicaid. They already have that infrastructure built out. And they also meet all of the needs identified, laid out by the Sober Living Task Force. And we also added a third-party evaluator, which is Omni Research Firm, to help us kind of monitor and evaluate this work as it moves forward to make sure that we are adhering into evidence-based practices. Next slide. So then 2023 came around and we had a lot of ARPA money. And we were able to secure some funds through the Behavioral Health Administration. we have been able to expand the services of Tribe Recovery to offer outpatient services, intensive outpatient services, in addition to the recovery home model services. Those services include individual therapy, group therapy, peer navigation, trauma-based therapies, especially EMDR, and are also offered in bilingual and monolingual Spanish. We also were able to secure additional funds to secure properties for these homes to exist. Next slide. So the staffing model of Tribe, what makes them also very unique is they always pair a 15-to-3 client staff ratio. So for every 15 clients, there is 3 staff. That is a therapist, a case manager, and a peer navigator. That is their treatment team, and they follow them through that whole process. They go through a hiring and vetting process that is also in compliance with state and federal regulations because they are HIPAA and 42 CFR regulated. They do an extensive onboarding process, and that includes with their peers. Their peers actually have to go through a 4-week training protocol to make sure that they are really well-versed in what their role and responsibility is. And then they start working with clients. They have ongoing weekly supervision and trainings. They have an on-site house manager that also supports residents when they have crisis at any moment in time. And they also do extensive culturally responsive trainings. Next slide. So what does a recovery home look like? So we know it's not a halfway house. We know it's not all these other different things, transitional housing. So we thought we would share some pictures of what their homes look like in Denver and Aurora. Next slide. So they look like our houses. They are well kept. The aim is to make it feel like home, make it feel like it's welcoming. And the executive director actually designs every single one of these because his perspective is, if I don't want to live here, no one else should. Next slide. So their kitchens are well kept. Next slide. Living rooms. They even have gardens in the backyard. Another kitchen. And the house, like just the rooms and the spaces. And there are 2 beds in this room. They are regulated by how many per square feet. That's by BHA. They have to adhere to that 100%, and they will 100% adhere to any zoning regulations in any community that they come to. Next slide. So funding sources, I've kind of alluded to this a little bit. So Boulder County has committed $600,000 to property acquisition. We also were able to offer $453,000 to a Forever Home for their outpatient services. They actually have already started to move in there and will be offering extensive outpatient services September 11th. And then we have the BJA grant, which we are in year 3. We'll probably get a extension. It's, as you can imagine, this is a really complicated project to stand up. So we will be moving into year 3 on October 1st and probably extending those services. We also were able to secure additional funds for a second home purchase. And we just recently secured $1 million to expand our outpatient and intensive outpatient services for the county. The city of Boulder has also committed $1.5 in property acquisition, which they have almost completed that process, and an additional $300,000 for that Forever Home for services. Next slide. So our current status. So I mentioned that they are moving into their Forever Home. Up until now, they've been providing services out of the county SunQuest facility, which is off of Broadway and Iris. And so those services have been individual therapy, EMDR, MAT. They do have an on-site MAT clinician, group therapy, peer navigation, and service provisions that are rooted in client-centered needs. So they've had some small service offerings right now. They have worked with some individuals from Longmont, and the biggest challenge with the Longmont clients is transportation. So a lot of the clients that are from Longmont are more likely to disengage. So next slide. So implementation into 2023, as I said, we are scaling up with all of the outpatient services and the intensive outpatient services, and really looking for a second home for participants. And that is why we're here today. Next slide. So with that, I want to open it up for questions.
Thank you for this presentation. It's a lot of information to digest, but I think it's a great thing. Counselor Martin?
Thank you. I'll be quick, two-part question. First of all, you said housing first, and many of our addicted population are service resistant, unhoused, and don't want to be housed. Is that what the outpatient services are for, or is there a missing component here because we don't really have any way of detaining people?
It could be, and it could be a way of engaging. So one of the other pieces with their peer navigation specialists is actually doing street outreach and engaging and building those relationships and then bringing people in to offer those services. The aim, of course, is to eventually have them move into these homes or move into an apartment when they provide those wraparound services post-housing.
Okay. Does that mean that in order to avoid such people disengaging, you would need an office or outreach center in Longmont as well as a home?
Not necessarily. I know that on the county side, we have discussed maybe using the hub as a secondary satellite location.
Well, that was what I was thinking about
Yes,
too.
we have talked about that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Counselor Waters?
Thanks, nice presentation. And you may have said it, and I missed it early in your presentation. How broad, in terms of recovery, is this, and sober living, recovery is more than sober or than sobriety. How broad are we defining in terms of criteria for participation as we think about recovering from?
I think that's a great question, and I have an answer. So, Tribe's model is that you can come back for outpatient services even if you graduated and you need them. They also have stood up a alumni program where individuals can do, I know it sounds really crazy, but go bowling or go play softball with a group of folks that are also in recovery. So their aim is not to just do treatment now and send you on your own, but really build a lifestyle around what sobriety looks like long term.
Are you working with anybody from the Recovery Cafe in Longmont?
We are.
I mean, their
Yes.
view of recovery isn't the opposite of addiction, it's community.
Yes.
Right.
And Tribe has actually been in communication with the Recovery Cafe to figure out how they can work and support each other.
Yeah, I won't bog us down because we're gonna have a long night here, but I have more questions that maybe you could correspond and we could exchange email.
Absolutely.
Just in terms of your Omni Research and Evaluation Partners, there's a whole string of questions I have. What kind of evidence, what are the evidence-based practices? What are the data for those who have graduated? I assume among the criteria that would be used for measuring success is the endurance of sober living or community, right? Whatever caused one to be involved with recovery home. And what you mean, when you say scale, there's a whole set of questions for me about what does that mean? So there's those kind of questions. There's no doubt about the need. We're not being asked to vote anything, but if I were, I'd be supportive. But I do have questions I'd like to kind of drill down on just to have a better understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. Joni, will you guys make sure? Thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So I have a couple of questions. When you talk about the forever home, are you talking about a home for more than one individual to be in?
So when I say forever home, I mean their forever treatment. Like they're actually like physical location to do outpatient services, intensive outpatient services, Tribe's forever home. So I apologize.
Okay. And that is what you're looking at the hub for?
That would be a satellite of the location because they are actually moving into a physical facility in Boulder proper. And so looking at really making sure that we have the hub as a satellite office to provide the same suite of services.
So what you're looking for from us then is a place, a house for the forever services, or for the, I'm sorry, not for the forever home.
So actually what we're looking for is just the permission of council for us to purchase a home to do recovery homes in Longmont.
Okay, I wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions from other counselors? Thank you very much. This is very interesting and much needed.
Thank you. You guys have a great night.
You too. So our second presentation is the Longmont Public Media Quarterly Update.
Yes, I can.
Okay, thanks.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Sergio Angelis. I'm the Executive Director and Co-Founder of Longmont Public Media. And I'm here tonight to just give our quarterly update.
Good evening.
So some of the stuff I'm going to be talking about tonight, just to go over some Q2 metrics as well as some updates. And why don't we just start off with some of the nerdy, geeky stuff. So at the end of Q2, so that's June of this year, we ended the quarter with 306 total free memberships, 146 paid memberships, for a total of about 452 total memberships, again, since starting in 2020. We saw a significant increase this last quarter of paid memberships, which is great. We did also we did increase our membership dues by $5 to $10, and we hardly saw any cancellations, which is always great. So with that increase in paid memberships, we had quarterly Q2 membership revenue of about $7,726. That's up about $1,300 from Q1. So year to date, at the end of Q2, we have about 14,000 of membership dues. We're projecting to hit around 30,000, if not more, and we'll keep you guys obviously updated throughout the year. With increased members, we're continuing to see more and more usage. Usage hours until the end of June 2023 is about 1,500 usage hours of the space in general. We're anticipating about 3,000 hours of usage by the end of this year. Again, this is probably a little bit misleading, as there's probably some people that just haven't reserved studio space. So it could actually be more than what you're seeing on screen. In terms of year-to-date hours watched, so a little under 3,000 hours of content watched across Longmont Public Media channels. So that's YouTube, Facebook, Vimeo, Roku, and our website. We still don't have data from Comcast, so I do not know what viewership is like there. Although we do continue to see PEG fees decline, so more and more subscribers are getting away from cable television. Also not included on here is obviously any City of Longmont viewership for videos and stuff that we provide the city. In terms of total hours watched since we started in January 2020, a little over 30,000 hours of content watched. Some of the most popular videos in Q2 were an educational video, which is just how to use some of our NDI PTZ cameras, Rational Alchemy, Three's Company, the backstory on the I Have a Dream program, the Soundpost sessions with Alexa Wildish and Humbird, and for some reason, a very specific City Council study session on April 4th, 2023. I don't know why. In terms of the most liked videos for Q2, first one was the NDI PTZ camera. Second was about the weight pile on the Rockies, followed by King Penny's podcast, episode number 2 and number 1, and then Boulder County, Juneteenth, 2023. We only had 3 disliked videos. This data is all from YouTube from Q2. We don't know, again, why these were disliked. We don't get any feedback about that at all. First one was Behind the Bar Storytelling, followed by the Communist Manifesto for Personal Finance 2022 Year in Review, and then Rational Politics, Where Do You Get Your News? So I won't go over the full list, but this is just some of the new shows that were produced and or broadcast at Longmont Public Media in Q2. We continue to just diversify the programming. Members also continue to diversify the content they produce, and we just see more and more diversity, which is great for the community. Some other metrics. So in Q2, we had a total users and viewers of just under 25,000. Total impressions, which is the amount of times that LPM content was fed to people but not necessarily clicked on, was 214,000. That's over YouTube, Facebook, and Vimeo. The average percentage of a video that someone watches per view is about 7.9%, and then the average view duration is 1 minute and 48 seconds. So this is new from this quarter, but we're going to be including it now on since we're using TikTok a lot more, and everyone else is. So this data is from a 60-day period from May 11th to July 9th, but we had about 6,600 video views, 160 likes, and 24 shares. We also have created TikToks that have led to people learning about LPM for the very first time in Longmont, having them come and do a tour, and then sign up for membership on the spot. So we're going to continue to produce more of those in the future. And now some just updates on what we've been up to the quarter. So one of the bigger things is we launched a e-learning platform. So it's called Learn with LPM. So anyone can go to learn.longmontpublicmedia.org and just watch a variety of educational content about how to create media, how to use equipment, how to use our studios, how to fly drones. We're working on building more and more classes, online classes, so people can also, learn from home, but then come into LPM and, get some hands-on experience as well. We did officially start our second high school summer internship program. We had 3 St. Vrain students. That internship program ends this week. They've produced and created just a lot of great content, some of which is up on YouTube now. We also started hosting something called the Tiny Deck Concerts, kind of a riff off of Tiny Desk. Sorry, yeah, Tiny Desk. So we held those. There's a patio on the Carnegie Building. So we held some concerts there right before the Downtown Summer Concert Series, when we're actually going to host another one this month for unity in the community. And then we also hosted a business before hours with the Longmont Chamber. So we had about, maybe close to 100 different business members come into the space, learn about what we do, just kind of tour around and get to know what they can do at the facility. We also had Boco Prep High School. They visited Longmont Public Media and recorded a podcast episode for the Humanize podcast. You can see the students there learning how to use some of the equipment in the room. We are in conversation with Boco Prep to have maybe more field trips or more educational opportunities for the students to come in, use some of the equipment, and just kind of learn more about media. We started offering more multi-week workshops. This was something that members asked for. So in particular, we beta tested with a lighting workshop, so people can learn more about, how do you light your subjects, how do you light your set, and that sort of thing. We did improve some of our technology behind the scenes, more specifically our server that allows us to stream all the cable TV channels to our website as well as Roku, so we have better reliability and analytics. Also, as some of you may know, the Tinkermill and Longmont Public Media Partnership will not be moving forward. I'm going to be staying on as executive director for the foreseeable future. If you want to know why it's not moving forward, I would recommend that you ask Tinkermill, as they are the ones that ended that partnership. And last but not least, Longmont Public Media is now an award-winning station. So Joel's Garden Academy, which was produced by LPM member Bob Brzezinski, produced this video, Joel's Garden Academy, about apple and pear tree grafting with his neighbor here in Longmont, and it won the best instructional video at the 2023 Hometown Video Awards. So that's pretty exciting, and if anyone hasn't seen it, highly recommend you watch it and learn something new. So with that, does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Sergio. This is very interesting. I have a question, seeing nobody in the queue. How much did our increase in the franchise fee help you to move on?
Mayor Peck, do you mind repeating the question? What, I don't know
Well,
what you mean by move on.
Well, increase your membership, your programming. Did it help your business acumen, I guess?
Yeah, no, the added increase, the 50% increase or 25% increase in franchise fees definitely helps support and stabilize the organization, the nonprofit. We're able to do more marketing, spend more, ad spends on that, get more staff to be able to accomplish a lot more and do some of the things that we've been wanting to do.
Great. That's good to know. Thanks. I see no more discussion. Thank you very much. This was good.
Yeah, thank you all. Have a good night.
We're now at first call, public invited to be heard. Remember that you have 3 minutes, and we would like you to state your name and address. The first one on the list is Diane Christ.
Dear council members, I also signed up to speak about agenda item 10E. And if you don't mind, I'll just, for efficiency's sake, just combine them right here.
Okay.
I have concerns regarding the determination that citizens and resident are interchangeable words, especially in the case of first call, public invited to be heard, which should be for citizens and employees only to be consistent with the charter. For instance, on the charter, the city charter, section 3.9, council meetings, halfway down the paragraph reads, all regular and special meetings of the council shall be open to the public, and citizens and employees shall have a reasonable opportunity to be heard. And they're enumerated that way. Later on in the city charter, there's instances where residents are included along with citizens. In other words, they're kept separate. For instance, in section 4.10.010, purpose of policies and procedures, it reads at the end of that paragraph 7, in order to preserve the public purpose of the district, financial integrity of the city, and the health, safety, and prosperity, security, and general welfare of all the residents and citizens of the city, including the residents and citizens of the district. So they are separating them, I think, intentionally. So the writers of our city charter probably had something specific in mind in using each term, citizen and resident, separately and not interchangeable. And why? What is the purpose in keeping them separate? I believe the word citizen relates to the instance in Rule 5, citizen participation, in that citizens are ones who have voting authority within the city. One must be a citizen to vote, and therefore has more skin in the game, so to speak, to matters coming before the council, as do employees. Citizens have long-gone addresses they are asked to provide when addressing the council. Residents may or may not have an address, as in prior determination by the council. Unhoused residents may use the Our Center as an address. So that determination by the council kind of emphasizes that the council also sees citizens and residents treated differently, and that they have different requirements of each status. So I just want to point that out to the council and suggest that we keep those separate and distinct. And then, for my more general comments, since I didn't think I'd use all my time, I just want to express water concerns. And then I noticed the water levels are very high in all the retention ponds and all the aqueducts. And I've also seen some flooding in the farmland north of us. And I just want to say, if you need to make preemptive or evasive action, I'm just pointing out that that's what's going on, and maybe somebody is on it. So that's all I have to say today, and thank you, council.
Thank you, Diane. Ethan Ogren? Is Ethan here? Not seeing him, we'll move on to Georgette Johnston.
Good evening. Georgetta Johnston, 320 Homestead Parkway, Spring Creek Apartments, 80504. So I was asked today, I was at a meeting and I was told, and I did see the paper, that you are talking about putting certain things on the ballot. And I want to say, thank you very much, Mayor, and all of you for letting me talk. a good city. An indoor ice skating rink and swimming pool. I pray that you're going to be able to get all that really nice. An arts and entertainment center too that we need to make this city a good city and help people with different things. I feel like it's good entertainment, clean. And then our senior city, I pray that you're going to, our senior center, you're going to help them with money that they need or support them so it does well, because it does help our senior citizens in all kinds of ways besides the classes and different things. I don't really understand exactly what's going on, but that isn't good. So and I did hear a comment from Harold that you are supporting that somewhat. Affordable housing that works for seniors that want a safe place, which I live, which I do want, and affordable housing for people with disabilities. I feel like situations like that need to be worked out because there's some struggles on that. A good city, when we speak up and work together, that's how we're going to work. That's why I come and talk, because I care about the city. And I'm an older person that's lived here, or otherwise I wouldn't take my time and do want it. In all the situations that come along, because if we don't care about it, we just sit back and gripe and complain and never come and work together and talk about it and put efforts. And I've been here all my life and paid taxes, supported, done all kinds of things. So I come because I want to support it, and also the roads, the streets. I don't know what's going on and why certain things doesn't get done. Better eating places like a buffet, and also shopping. We don't want it going out of town. How's that going to support this? That's the way I feel about it. And different people, a lot of people tell me, keep talking, but yet they don't come and talk themselves. So I come because I care about Longmont and want a good city and want to support the older, the younger, the in-between, all of us. Lord bless you, and I pray that you do a good job. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Georgetta.
You're welcome.
Stanley? Stanley Toll.
My name is Stan Toll, 2001 Terry, here in Longmont. The reason I'm coming here is I, didn't purchase the paper, but I saw in the paper that they're thinking about putting some initiatives on the ballot, and I think housing is one of them. And what I was going to suggest is that housing be definitely it's separated into issues and put on the ballot, because what happened in Fort Collins and a lot of other places is that certain people's ox is going to get gored if we have fair housing in this community. And the only way I think that you can avoid the pressure and not have, like in Fort Collins, the whole city council kicked out because they wanted to be fair to everybody. So I suggest that a lot of the housing reforms, and put a lot of them on a ballot, and don't make the mistake that Brian Bagley made and try to put something on the off-year election. Make sure it's either a presidential or a major election that people are going to be voting at. The other thing I was going to mention was a Centennial Pool. I used it today. It's actually a very good place. I suggest that we maintain the Centennial Pool and maybe increase its hours as much as possible, because it is a good facility, even though it's old and it requires maintenance. And whatever we do, don't shut down Centennial with the plan that we're going to build something else. If Centennial gets shut down, make sure we have another good indoor pool. And finally, on financing any recreational things, I suggest that we work with property taxes opposed to sales taxes, because sales taxes are very aggressive. And I just looked at statistics that overall taxes, lower income people are paying a lot more than the higher income. And in this community, financing things with property tax is, for the most part, fair in that the people with more property can usually afford to pay more. Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley. Scott Conlon.
Mayor, I'm going to stop sharing this presentation for Sean while Scott comes up.
Oh, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, staff. Scott Conlon, 1014 Fifth Avenue. Longtime resident and organizer of Let's Get Physical Longmont. We're the community group, again, helping to support and promote recreational issues. They're coming up on the ballot in November. Also a Parks and Rec member, but only here as a private citizen. So I want to thank you for your consideration. I wrote to all of you earlier for supporting recreation efforts being put in front of voters this fall. And specifically, I want to talk about the new recreation center and the Y Recreation Project, or whatever we're going to call the Y Project, is agenda number 12 on tonight's agenda. So on the new recreation center first, I'd like to advocate for a couple of features that I've heard a lot through social media, through Let's Get Physical Longmont. If you haven't heard it so far, 8 to 10 pool lanes, not 6. We need more than replacement. I think Mayor Peck was one of those people. Include a warm exercise pool for seniors, and consider having the aquatics area open to the outside. Maybe incorporate a splash pad or something to be a little bit inside outside. We can't have another sunset pool, but maybe something that works year round and has a little outdoor component. I think the new recreation center is great at providing complementary services to the existing rec center and whatever the Y project is going to be to fit the needs of the community. So far to date, we've had a lot of great surveys, and I think we've got a lot of input from citizens. And so I think we look at that as we go forward with the project. I just want to make a little note on costs. It looks like the costs are only about $100 a year in property taxes for a $500,000 house for a resident. So I really don't think that that's really a decision factor of voting against a rec center. That's really kind of de minimis compared to what the benefit is for the residents of the community. So secondly, on the Y project, and quickly, I just want to say that I think it's a great deal. For $12 million, we get another big recreation facility, we get some ice, we get more pool lanes, and we do this all in a part of the community that is asking for a rec center. So I think it's a great replacement for the Centennial Pool, and we can develop that. So I'd just like to lastly ask you to consider putting together the new rec center and the Y project together as a ballot measure. I know you have a number of different options, but I think it goes better together, and then all of Longmont can vote together on a recreation package versus voting against each other. So, thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Paige Lewis.
Good evening, Mayor and council members and staff. My name is Paige Lewis. I live at 805 Nelson Park Lane. I've been a member of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board for, I think, 5 years now, and have been chair for the past 2, but I want to be clear that I'm here tonight as a private citizen expressing my opinions on item 12 in particular. And I'd like to really start by thanking you for considering the number of amenities that you're looking at putting on the ballot. I'm really excited about the potential forward-looking investment in the future of our community. And I'd like to particularly express strong support for the importance of providing additional recreation facilities to meet the needs of our growing community, our growing population, and to really ensure that Longmont continues to offer into the future for future generations a really healthy, vibrant, and engaging place to live. For recreation, I have to say that this feels a bit like potentially a once-in-a-generation opportunity to bring these facilities to fruition. I worry that if it gets on the ballot and doesn't pass this time, that it may be several years before we have this opportunity again. So really want to encourage you to do all that you can to put forward the strongest package possible when you put this on the ballot, which I hope you will. And in my mind, that means, similar to what Scott suggested, bundling the two recreation facilities together. I feel like that really makes the strongest package. If you put the new recreation center and the recreation facility that would come through the Y partnership together, you get a really compelling suite of amenities. You get services added to two different areas of the city, and it is very cost effective. So I'd really like to encourage you to look at putting them together on the ballot. I worry that if they're listed separately, it could create an even busier ballot. It could cause confusion, and it may end up splitting votes, and potentially neither item would pass. So I really think that it's most strong together. Another thing I'd like to ask, it's my understanding that we as advocates will only be able to use information that is made available in the next few weeks before you do the next vote on this. So I'd really like to encourage you to get as much accurate, updated information about this proposal out into the public domain, including updated drawings that show the facilities to scale versus, the little boxes that are hard to interpret. Updated any kind of details that you can share that we as advocates for this going forward can use to answer community questions and make the most compelling case possible for passage of this. Really excited about this possibility and look forward to supporting it, and know also that we as private citizens and also as members of PRAB will stand ready to help and support this going forward. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Paige. Seeing no one else on the list, I will close up. No, I didn't see your name on this list. This one. I had no way of knowing. Okay, thank you. You can do final call, public invited to be heard. Pardon me? Well, if you can hear me, your name is on the list and you can come forward. If not, I'm going to close public invited to be heard. Final call. You can see him, okay. Sorry, your name wasn't on the list. So we are now at Ethan. Are you going to speak? Okay.
Thank you, apologize for that. There's a lag in the video between what's in here and what's outside. Good evening. My name is Ethan Green, resident of planet Earth, citizen of the United States of America. I'd like to direct your attention to page 20 in the packet, page 3 in the July 25th meeting minutes. And there you will see that at the last meeting, July 25th, 4 individuals spoke who were not residents of Longmont. They came from Denver, Fort Collins, and Littleton. And that's strictly prohibited, being that they're non-residents. They're not allowed to be here to speak during this time. That's according to your rules, not mine. I think everyone should be allowed to speak. They brought forward an important issue regarding pet puppy mills, and they were saying that they have a problem in their communities that they don't want to see spread to other communities. And that's a perfect use of public invited to be heard, in my opinion. It's a free speech issue. It's also a public safety issue. If there are people who come from any place in the community, whether it's inside city limits or outside, and they have an important public safety concern, if they can't bring that forward, that affects the safety and health, potentially of all residents of the city. So I would urge you to repeal that rule. The fact that it was not enforced at the last meeting shows that either you choose not to enforce it or it's unenforceable. So maybe you could check people's IDs when they come in to see if they actually are a Longmont resident. I don't think you should do that. That violates the Constitution. We should respect the First Amendment, allow everyone to have a voice.
So do you live in Longmont, Ethan?
Of course.
Okay. Ethan, that rule hasn't passed yet. It's in discussion, so last week it wasn't enforced for that reason, or the week before. So thank you. All right, we are now on ordinances, first reading by, I'm sorry. Yeah, we're on the consent agenda. Would you mind reading the ordinances into the record?
Sure, Mayor. Second reading of public hearing for ordinance on this agenda, including the ordinances appearing under general business, will be held on August 22nd, 2023. Item 9A is ordinance 2023-35, a bill for an ordinance making additional appropriations for expenses and liabilities of the city of Longmont for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2023. Item 9B is resolution 2023-61, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and Boulder County for the conduct and administration of the 2023 coordinated election to be held on November 7th, 2023. Item 9C is resolution 2023-62, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and Weld County for the conduct and administration of the 2023 coordinated election to be held on November 7th, 2023. Item 9D is resolution 2023-63, a resolution of the Longmont City Council authorizing a loan from fund balance in the city's fleet fund to the Golf Enterprise Fund and providing for repayment of the loan from the Golf Enterprise Fund. Item 9E is resolution 2023-64, a resolution of the Longmont City Council to approve a portion of land to be dedicated as a public right-of-way for Iron Horse Drive. Item 9F is resolution 2023-66, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Longmont, Colorado, approving the mayoral appointment of Chris McGilvray as the Longmont Urban Renewal Authority Commissioner. Item 9G is approved 2 capital improvement program amendments. And that's all of them.
Thank you, Crystal. Do council members, does anybody on council want to pull any of the items on the agenda, on the consent agenda? Seeing no one, can I have a motion? Second. So the consent agenda has been moved by Councilor Martin and seconded by Councilor Waters. Let's vote.
Can you do a verbal vote?
Sure. All those in favor of passing the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? Okay. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. So we're going to do ordinances on the second reading and public hearings on any matter. The first one is A 0-2023-31, a bill for an ordinance making additional appropriations for expenses and liabilities of the City of Longmont for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2023. Are there any questions from council on this item? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing on 2023-31. Is there anybody from the public that wants to address this item? Seeing no one, I would close the public hearing. Can I have a motion to pass this Ordinance 2023-31.
I.e. move 2023-31.
Okay, that's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez, seconded by Councilor Martin. Let's vote. This was moved by Aaron Rodriguez, seconded by Mount. There you go, thank you. That passes unanimously. Item B, 2023-32, a bill for an ordinance conditionally approving the vacation of 1 irrigation ditch easement, 2 water line easements, and 2 utility easements generally located on 2 parcels south of East Rogers Road, east of Martin Street, and north of East Second Avenue. Are there any questions from council on this ordinance? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing on 2023-32. Is there anybody from the public that would like to address this ordinance? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on this ordinance. Can I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Councilor, this was moved by Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez, seconded by Councilor Hidalgo Faring. Let's vote. That passes unanimously. Item C, 2023-33, is a bill for an ordinance conditionally approving the vacation of a portion of public right-of-way known as East Second Avenue, generally located at the eastern terminus of East Second Avenue, south of East Rogers Road, and east of Martin Street. Are there any questions from council on this ordinance? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing on 2023-33. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address this ordinance? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing on this ordinance. Can I have a motion to pass?
I move ordinance 2023-33.
So that's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez, seconded by Councilor Martin. Let's vote. That passes unanimously. Ordinance D is 2023-34, a bill for an ordinance conditionally approving the vacation of a portion of public right-of-way known as East Rogers Road, generally located east of Martin Street, west of Lashley Street, and north of East Second Avenue. Are there any questions from council on this ordinance? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing on 2023-34. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address this ordinance? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Can I have a motion on this ordinance 2023-34? It's been moved by Councilor Martin, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez. Let's vote. And that carries unanimously. The last one is to approve amendments to the City Council's Rules of Procedure. I want to read the title here. Where is this title? Oh, where did it go? Sorry, I'm trying to manipulate this cursor. So there are 3 amendments to this. I'm going to read them individually, and then we can ask for a motion to, I think we need to approve them individually. So the first one is to remove a reference to Friday's work sessions from Rule 25 in the Rules of Procedures meetings and replace it with monthly pre-sessions from 6 to 7 p.m. prior to an LHA Board of Commissioners meeting. Well, I would like to open this one up for discussion. I would like to open it up for discussion from council. Councilor, Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. My comments will be somewhat similar to the third of the three amendments proposed, in the sense that I think there should be a certain prerogative reserved for the chair or mayor at the time, as this is being changed because under the previous mayor, we had a Friday morning thing, not necessarily because of his choice, but that was under his election as mayor. And now we're changing it again, so that's twice it's changed in my short time on council. That I think this should be considered more of an ad hoc thing than a prescriptive thing within the rules and procedure. Similarly to the third thing, which is about public invited to be heard, I feel the chair should have prerogative and choose how they employ public invited to be heard at the meetings. So it's nothing against the proposal. I just feel that making it prescriptive within rules and procedures is not the right way to go about those two items. So those are just my thoughts on those two items. I'd be happy, as far as the first one that we're speaking about currently, to remove it, but not replace it with anything.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
I agree with the mayor pro tem in principle, but I am not sure why an incoming mayor could not simply move to change the rules of procedure to fit their preferences, because we're kind of far down the road on the adoption of these. So maybe that we can add that to the onboarding process, that clue in the next mayor if it's somebody different. Otherwise, yeah, I kind of agree. We don't necessarily need to be prescriptive about number one. I feel, yeah, I have different feelings about number two.
Okay.
But yeah, for now, I move adoption of number one.
Seconded.
It has.
Second.
I had seconded it.
Okay. So, Councillor Martin moved to remove reference to Friday work sessions from Rule 25. Right. I'm sorry, I was just reading what it said. I'm sorry, I didn't understand that at all. Can I just read what it says? Would that be okay? Okay. So Councillor Martin moved to remove reference to Friday work sessions from Rule 25 meetings and replace it with monthly pre-sessions from 6 to 7 p.m. prior to an LH Board of Commissioners meeting. And Councillor Hidalgo Faring seconded that. Councillor Waters.
Thanks, Mayor Peck. This is the time to offer an amendment to this motion.
Yes.
So I'm going to move that we amend this motion to reflect the Mayor Pro Tem's recommendation, that we remove this language and do not replace this language with any language relative to pre-meetings or Friday morning meetings, on the premise that the next council, as long as you're mayor, you'll make those calls, and whoever comes next, whenever that is, could make their own call. But I do think, I don't think it's necessary. I'm persuaded by the comment, so that's the motion.
And I'll second that motion. Let's vote on the amendment to remove the pre-sessions from 6 to 7. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, to remove the monthly pre-sessions from 6 to 7. No, I'm sorry, that's not what we have. What we have is removing the Friday morning meetings and not replacing it with anything, taking it out of rules of procedure. So that is the amendment. So, are you okay?
I have a question.
Let's vote on the amendment and then discussion.
Yes, it will determine
Okay.
whether or not I vote on it.
Councillor Hidalgo Faring.
So I did notice in the council comm that staff had recommended item one, the amendment to item one for clarity. So by removing it, I would like to have input from staff, those most affected, would that throw anything off for you all as far as clarity or expectations, or even staffing people to come those days?
Well, I think that might be a different question. Right.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, you all show up.
There's frankly, the only ones that have to show up are Dawn to keep notes for the record, and then the two of us, just if something comes up, we can handle it. I think based on the amendment, as long as it was decided at the beginning of a legislative session and we just stuck to it, I think it's when it's moving. I want to do it on Wednesday this week and Thursday next. That's where it would be. But if we just decided on it and we stuck to it, I think that works for me.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So let's vote. That was, this motion was made by Councilor Waters, seconded by myself, to amend taking the pre-sessions for Friday out and not replacing it with anything, removing it from rules of procedure. So let's vote on that amendment, and then we'll vote on the next one. The result. That passes unanimously. Now we need to vote. Well, that pretty much takes care of it, doesn't it? Yeah. The original motion. So now we have to vote on. I needed to get rid of that, first of all. Okay, so let me bring up my council comm again, and we are now voting on to removing the reference to Friday work sessions from Rule 25. Yeah. From rules of procedure. Do I have a motion? Oh, that's right. So let's vote.
Mayor, who actually made that motion and seconded that one in the beginning?
The initial motion, and then Councilor Hidalgo Ferring seconded that.
Thank you.
That carries unanimously. That was an interesting discussion. Now we're going to go to the second one, which is reintroduction and passage of board pre-interview changes in, I'm sorry, I missed it. Reintroduction and passage of board pre-interview changes in Rule 27. Boards that were introduced in March of 2022, but not brought back for a second reading and thus not officially adopted. Can I have a motion? Councilor Martin.
So this one represents the practice that we did last time. So yeah, I think it worked much better, and I move adoption.
All right, so number 2, reintroduction and passage of board preview interview changes in Rule 27 was made by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Waters. Let's vote. No. Oh, I guess we do. It is the second reading. All right, so we had that discussion, and I'm sorry I did not open the first one to public hearing. But since that.
All of them at the same time to public hearing. I think we've done that before. Yeah. So you don't have to do it for the third one.
So I will open.
Well, I think you can open them all up at the same time. Well, no, that it'll. Reconsider, I guess. We can move to reconsider if we hear some compelling evidence.
All right, I am going to move then that all of these, I'm going to read, I just read the second one. I'm going to read the third amendment and then open up all of them to the public hearing. I'm sorry this is confusing because we have 3 different amendments, and to put it all under one and ask the residents to have a public hearing on all of them is a little disconcerting. But we'll go ahead and do that. So the third one is Amendment Rule 5, citizen participation to allow only Longmont citizens and employees to speak during first call, public invited to be heard, and thereby allowing anyone to speak during final call, public invited to be heard, regardless of where they live. I did not get a list on these second hearing items. So no one signed up, but is there, I will open it up. Yeah. Okay, so I'll open this up to public hearing. And anybody from the public that would like to speak on these? Steve Altschuler? I thought it was very interesting the way you signed up, by the way, for the first call.
Aren't we now able to identify as anything we want?
I don't think so.
A lot of people do. My name is Steve Altschuler, and I am, as I've said before, I am a citizen of the United States and a resident of Longmont. I just want you to know I understand the concern because I've been here before, whether it's for gun control or housing or too much soda on kids' menus, where people come from all different cities to complain to you because it's something they care about and they're not even part of the city. So I understand that point. But there is a difference between the word resident and citizen, which is why, as Diane pointed out earlier, there's a place in the city charter where it says residents and citizens. They are obviously different. My concern is that this could be a slippery slope, because if the city council, I don't want to say agrees, if they pass an edict that citizens and residents are equal, then what's to stop the next person from saying, well, now residents are allowed to vote. You don't have to be just a citizen, because citizens and residents are now equal. So I think it's a potential start towards a danger of allowing non-citizens, if you want to use the polite term, to start voting in our state and local elections, which is not the way our federal or state constitutions are written. Elections are for citizens. And like I said, I fear that by combining these two terms, you could be opening the gate for other people to want residents to vote everywhere where they shouldn't. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I would like to address that. First of all, what I am trying to do is to manage a business meeting. And citizens can all speak at final call, public invited to be heard. We have a room full of staff here and 3 people on council that have to get up early in the morning and go to work. Yeah. So it isn't about free speech, it's about managing this business meeting so that the people that we actually, we represent, get to speak about what we are doing, the policies we're making for their city. And then anyone else can speak at public invited to be heard second call. But Steve, I don't know what's going to happen down the road, but I don't think managing this business meeting is going to disallow people to vote. So. Thank you for your comments. So seeing nobody else in the queue or in the chamber that would like to speak on this, I would close public invited to be heard. And now let's vote or talk about number 2, reintroduction and passage of board interview changes. We have the motion. So now we just need to vote. That passes unanimously. Now we're on to the the third item, which is Amendment Rule 5. Citizen participation to allow only Longmont citizens and employees to speak during first call public invited to be heard. And thereby by allowing anyone to speak during final call public invited to be heard, regardless of where they live. Do we have anybody from council that would like to discuss this? Councilor Martin.
We seem to be still debating the meaning of the word citizen, whereas I thought by the instructions of the city attorney last time we had settled it to mean that citizen meant resident inside the city limits, whether they have voting rights or not. I am happy with that definition, but if it's going to be a continual point of contention, then maybe we should reaffirm it now. I think we should listen to anybody who lives here, but that's just me. So that's all I have to say.
And I think that's what this, from my perspective, that's what this does say. Anybody who lives within the city of Longmont.
Okay.
On first call, public invited to be heard. No,
We're voting on the third.
the third.
We already voted on the second.
Councilor Hidalgo Faring.
So as I was looking at our packet, we had our first reading, which utilized the word citizen, and then the one that we're voting on tonight, just for my own clarification, is the one that is listed under second reading amended council rules of procedure, which does make the change to resident. So I'm looking at the packet right now. Did you catch that on our packet?
I can't see it because it's.
Oh, I just pushed there's a little arrow on the bottom that you can hide the voting mechanism.
Yeah, it's not there on mine. This is,
Okay.
we should file a ticket.
So,
all right.
I can come help you look, council member, if you like. It's the first attachment in the items, because you all made a motion at your last meeting to amend these rules of procedures and to change that wording. So per your motion, in your packet are the amended rules of procedure, including those amendments, and then the original version as well. I'd be happy to come around and help you poke around if that's helpful.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
and so tonight we are voting on Rule 5, where it would change citizen to public participation, and then the amended would include Longmont residents and employees. A reasonable opportunity to be heard.
That. It used to say close inside. So it's not that one, it's this one.
Well, one is clean, so you're not seeing all the markup. That's this one. This one shows all the markup.
Thank you.
And that's what we're voting on.
I think so.
Public participation. Citizen, public, Longmont residents. Okay. Thank you.
And I do want to make a clarification in our council comm. It says, it says residents, but in the actual, I'm sorry, it says employees, but in the actual, in the actual rules of procedure, it has been said that it would be employees of the city of Longmont, not just employees. I just want to make that known. The organization, so it would be residents and city employees of the city of Longmont, rather than just employees generally. I just want to make that clarification.
I think that we would need another motion because we didn't capture that in the last motion, so.
So we can amend this amendment. Okay.
We have other amendments, yes.
Okay, because it does say in our council comm on page 4, letter C. You see? Yes. So the wording in the actual document has been changed, which I agree with, to Longmont, with a Longmont address, and employees of the city of Longmont will be heard, which is correct.
Under paragraph C in
Exactly.
Rule 5, yes.
Yes. Okay. So, let me see though. So the way it is in our council comm, is the council comm, is that written correctly?
The council comm is the original council communication from when we first brought that item. So that was the original wording. The rules of procedure is what you are actually adopting. And so the wording in the actual rules of procedure is what is following your motions, the direction you gave us in the last meeting.
So do we need to amend this amendment in order to match the rule?
If you, no, you do not.
Okay.
I do not think so. I misspoke.
Okay.
So 5C does capture that.
Thank you.
Employees of the city of Longmont, as you mentioned, yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you. And Councilmember McCoy has his.
Thank you.
Hand
Councilor
up.
McCoy.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I just wanted to point out that, first off, when we're really talking about residents, citizens, all these sort of interchangeable names, we're also talking about students and children that come up and talk to us. They're not a voting age, but they can come up and advocate and try to persuade us when they come in front of council to talk about specific issues that are important to them. And I don't believe, like one of the members of the public pointed out there, that we're going to be letting citizens of the United States vote. That's not a slippery slope. That's a perceived sort of idea, or just a fallacy that we're going to do that. Now, we could, as a community, choose to let 16-year-olds, let's say, vote in our municipal elections. But it doesn't, nobody seemed to have any interest in pursuing that right now. But that is not off the table. And other communities out there in the country are doing that for one reason or another. I'm not proposing that, but what I want to make clear is that when we interchange citizen with resident, it could be anybody. It can be anybody who is living and residing in Longmont. I just think that, it is difficult, it's true, to sometimes deal with the asking a member of public. Some are trying to say, oh, my PO box and that sort of nonsense, that's a legitimate location for you to receive your mail, but not a legitimate location to state that you are an actual physical resident of the city of Longmont. But some are playing those sort of games. And I know it's difficult, you being the mayor, being the one that has to ask people to give their address. We just need to, I guess, stand a little firmer on that in the future. And so that's why I'll be supporting this, because I think it's the right thing to do. I want to hear from our residents and our staff first, and then if other folks from outside our community who feel like they have a dog in the fight in one of the issues that we're talking about want to come and talk, that's fine. And that's what second reading is all about, and giving them that opportunity to speak their mind. So that's where I stand on this, and I just want to thank you for taking the time to listen to me. Thanks again.
Thank you, Councilor McCoy. So a motion has been made. Let's vote. I thought we did to pass this.
There wasn't a motion made, Mayor.
Okay. All right. You're going to move Amendment Rule 5.
Seconded.
All right. So, Councilor Waters.
Thanks, Mayor Peck. I'm going to offer an amendment to this motion to break this up into 2 votes. And my amendment would be just that, to vote first on the language under Rule 5 in paragraph A, to change citizen to public and citizens to Longmont residents. And then a second vote on paragraph C. That's that is a motion to amend.
Can you repeat that, the first vote that you would like?
I do want to support. I would like to make a distinction. I think this issue of citizen versus resident is important.
Okay.
I like the fact that we struck citizen and substituted public. I like the fact that we struck citizens and inserted Longmont residents. So I'd like to vote, I want to support that.
Okay.
I'll have a different view maybe when, on a second vote, but I'd like to break this up because I think these are two distinctly different and important changes we're making here.
So because I moved it, do I have to consider it friendly, or can I just second that?
So this is a point of order.
It's a point of order. I have a point of order.
Well, my motion would need a second from someone to.
Yeah, I mean, but we have an open, we have an open, an active motion. So then, can I just second, and then we vote on that, and then come back to this?
I think Mayor Peck, Councilmember Hidalgo Faring, I think you could accept his friendly
I
amendment and incorporate it in,
I
since you were the
accept it as
mover.
friendly, and then we can incorporate it in. That's what I was trying to get across.
If your seconder agrees.
Does my seconder agree? Yes.
Councilor McCoy, did
Well-
you have your hand up?
No, I didn't have my hand up, but if this is acceptable language by Councilmember Hidalgo Faring, I'll support her.
So, Councilor Waters has made a point of order to split this motion and have two motions. The first one is to, and I'm going to let you repeat that because I was a bit confused.
Thank you. There are, in the changes in the language in rules of procedures, there's a change in the heading under Rule 5 and in paragraph A, and then there is also a change in paragraph C. All I would like to do is vote first on the language in the heading for Rule 5 and paragraph A, with a second vote on paragraph C.
Okay.
So that can't be used as a friendly amendment.
Because we're separating it out now,
So Eugene, I have a question for you. If the motion as presented in the council com passes, then can we readdress it at this time for reconsideration? Or do we have to wait to another meeting to bring it back? Or can we withdraw the first motion?
Mayor and council, I'm trying to answer the questions as I understand them, so you can reconsider your vote at the same meeting or the next meeting.
Okay,
You haven't voted yet, though.
exactly, so we
you-
can withdraw it.
A couple of options, I think Councilmember Hidalgo Faring could withdraw her motion, start with a clean slate. If she's going to defer to Councilmember Waters' separate motions, that might be the cleanest, I think.
Okay, thank you. All right.
In that case, I'm going to move that we I move that we approve the change in language for the heading for Rule 5 from citizen to public and the language in paragraph A from citizens to Longmont residents.
Period.
Period.
Second.
Okay, that makes sense. So that motion was made by Councilor Waters, seconded by Councilor Martin. Is there any more discussion from councilors? Sean McCoy, no, he's good. Okay, let's vote. That carries unanimously. Counselor Waters, you have a second motion?
No.
Counselor Hidalgo Faring.
Okay, so I'll move passage of the council rules of procedure, Rule 5, and it was letter C.
Seconded.
Okay, so that motion was made by Counselor Hidalgo Faring, seconded by Counselor McCoy. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. So that carries with Counselor Martin, Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez, and Counselor Waters in opposition, and with myself, Counselor Yarbrough, and Counselor Hidalgo Faring, Counselor McCoy in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have no items removed from the consent agenda. Do we need to take a break? Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break. Oh, no, that was fine. Oh, shoot, I should have. That was confusing.
Hey Dee, it's Sandy.
Hi, Sandy.
I know. Should have worn my heels.
Yeah,
Okay, can you hear and see us okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. So we have one other quick presentation. I don't know. One more
Yeah,
presentation.
promises,
Yeah,
Sandy.
great. Yeah, so if you want to stay off camera during that
Yeah.
presentation, that would be
Sure.
and I'll
Okay.
Right.
All right.
And I'm learning a lot about backflow prevention. It's very interesting. So you might like the presentation.
All right.
Okay, Sean, I'm gonna bring up their presentation if they're all set.
Thank you, Steve.
There we go. Okay. I gotta share that with Sean. All right, Sean,
I see it now. I got it.
see that?
I can see it.
I'm sorry, Sean, I couldn't hear. Can you hear that? Can you see that okay? Okay. So what I'll do is
We're ready.
So we're at general business on the agenda, seeking direction on the proposed changes to backflow programs, to the backflow program. Bob, are you up for, is
I
this
am up.
yours? Okay.
Mayor Peck and members of City Council, can you hear me? So we are here tonight to talk about improvements we'd like to make to the backflow prevention program ahead of ordinances that we'd like to bring in September. Our focus is going to be on impacts to the commercial sector, so that's why we're bringing it tonight. And here to make this presentation, I think this is the first time she's presenting to you, is Ozra Bilgen. Ozra's been with us for about a year now. She was previously with the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. She was also an associate professor at the University of Colorado before that. So with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Dr. Bilgen.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Peck and members of the City Council. And thank you, Bob, for the introduction. As he said, I'm Azra Bilgin. I'm a senior civil engineer in Environmental Services Group in the Water and Waste Department. We are here today. First, I need to figure out how to use this. Okay, there we go. Okay. Thanks. So we are here today to present to you and get your opinion on a technical subject that would normally be on the consent agenda. But as Bob mentioned, it is important because we would like to get your opinion on the impacts, because it does have impacts on our commercial properties and the residents that are within the city. And we would like to seek your direction on the proposed changes that we're going to be discussing with you tonight. The way the existing program is set up right now is penalizing community members who do not have the responsibility to meet the requirements, which I'm going to explain to you in detail in the later slides. But with the goal of the improvements is to make sure that we actually have a strong enforcement towards responsible parties, and we make sure that we avoid making unfair penalization of our community members. So with that, I'd like to talk about what a backflow is. If you look at this slide and this picture, what you will see is that at the bottom, there is the water line. That's our distribution system connecting to the properties within the city and providing water service. When a drop in the pressure happens on that main line, what happens is that that flow goes into the reverse direction, which is what we call backflow in that case. And in that scenario, any potential contamination that could be coming from these properties would go into our main drinking water system, our distribution system, which would pose a threat to all of our residents. And these risks, I want to go back and talk a little bit more about who are the properties that are posing this risk. So the potential risk, the risks that are identified by the state that are coming from mostly commercial properties, and that's the purpose of us coming out here today. These commercial properties include car washes, restaurants, landscaping services, hair salons. It could be multifamily complexes. These are the identified higher risk groups by the state. Now, single-family residents, they do have a risk, but they are considered very low risk by the state. So we don't regulate this program on single-family housing properties unless they have a separate irrigation line and or they have swimming pools, yard hydrants, anything that might actually cause a risk, considered as a higher risk. So as the city, we make sure that we do regular surveys, inspections, and identify properties that may pose a risk in a single family group, as well as looking into all the commercial properties. How do we prevent backflow after we describe this? So there are assemblies that are installed on these water lines right before it enters to these buildings. And by installing these backflow assemblies, we do stop that backflow that's coming from those properties back into the main line. That ensures the safety of our drinking water system, that ensures our public health. So for that purpose, it's important. And then at the same time, it is regulated by the state and federal laws that we do that. The role of the city at this is that we oversee the protection of our water system by inspecting all new buildings, any new buildings that are commercial or pose a threat that we consider might have a cross-connection, a potential cross-connection risk. And also we survey existing properties on a regular basis. We also oversee the annual testing of all the backflow, all the commercial backflow devices within the city. And we make sure that they comply. So why do we do that? Our first goal is to protect the public health. This backflow poses us health risk to our community. Contamination in our water distribution system could cause widespread illnesses within our community. And we would like to avoid that to the extent possible. The other goal, our second goal, is that the federal laws and the state laws, they require our city, any city basically, to administer and maintain a backflow prevention program. And that's the second goal of this program that we're trying to achieve. The Longmont's Backflow Prevention and Cross-Connection Control Program I will explain to you what it consists of, what its purpose, but I want you to get your attention to the picture first. It's a backflow device that you see over here. This is installed at the entrance of probably an industrial or an office building, because it's one of the bigger ones. And that's what we're talking about when we say backflow assembly that protects our water system. Currently, we have more than 5,000 backflow assemblies that are registered in our city, that are in our system. This testing them and maintaining them is solely the responsibility of the property owners. But what the city is obligated by regulations is to make sure that these devices are installed, that these devices are maintained, and that they are tested every year with a passing test, which is what we're required by the state to report to them at a certain percentage, which I'll get to. So that's our goal, in addition to inspecting these devices and surveying. As I mentioned, state regulates this. State regulations over the years has gotten more stringent. They're making sure that the cities are protecting their water system and their residents by enforcing the regulations to up to 90% of testing of all the devices with a passing test. So how are we doing? Here's a graph of the city of Longmont compliance ratios, so testing results. If you look at the y-axis, we see the percent device tested within the city, and we do see it per year starting in 2016. The blue columns are the number of devices that are, the percent of devices that are tested in the city of Longmont, and the red line with the arrow is what the state requirements are. What I'm trying to show you here, we are exceeding state requirements each year, even though they got more and more stringent every year. So why are we here? Well, we're here because that comes at a cost to us, to city staff, and then there's also some other issues which we've brought up as the penalization doesn't seem correct. So we are here to ask you for your opinion on those issues. But first, I'd like to tell you a little bit about current testing process. Our current testing process seems quite simple because we notify the customers, we say, it's your due date, get your tests done on your backflow devices and send us the passing test. We give them the due date and they get their device tested, send us the test results, we're done, annual testing completed if it's a passing test. And we just added to our number that we're gonna report to the state. However, if the testing is not completed within the due date, then what happens is, although as the city staff, we have, the state regulations tell us that we should shut the water off to protect the public's health, and our city code allows us to do water suspension, water service suspension. It is not a preference that we choose to do because of the reasons I mentioned, because what happens in this case is we're talking about multifamily complexes, which are mostly tenants, and we're talking about commercial properties, which are probably small restaurant owners that do not really own the property and only rent. So by doing water service suspension, we're penalizing the people who are not responsible to take care of the backflow. And for that reason, we work to the extent possible not to do the water suspension and instead try to work with our customers. That takes a lot of work because of the state enforcing that we need to get that testing done within a certain time frame. So there's lots of staff working on a huge amount of hours trying to track these customers who are not responsive to get their tests done. And that puts a lot of stress and a lot of work, which is also costly. And that cost is actually taken out of the utility rates of all customers, not just commercial customers. And it also puts a risk on non-compliance, which is pretty stressful on the city staff. Therefore, we decided to make some improvements that we will bring to your attention. And here's our recommended approach. For us to be able to administer this program in a more, in a better approach, but at the same time provide the same flexibility that we're providing to our customers in terms of testing, getting the tester that they choose, as long as they complete it in the given time frame. We wanted to keep our initial procedure, initial testing process, which is we notify them, we give them a due date. They are welcome to go work with any tester that they would like, as long as they complete the testing within the given time. Then it's over. If they do not do that on time, we would like to give the authority to the director by the code to actually do the testing on behalf of these property owners at their expense. And so we take care of the backflow devices, we get them tested. Customer still pays, but we don't have to worry about meeting the state requirements or working towards the end of the year and not sure if we're going to comply or we're not going to be in compliance. So with that, we will make sure that a lot more of our customers will hopefully comply. This will require them to work with us with the scheduling. If they don't, again, because it's in the state regulations, and although we don't like it, it's still an option. It still needs to be enforced that water service suspension is an option. Because at the end of the year, to comply, we may have to do the water suspension. But by initiating some fines, such as up to $1,000 in civil penalties, that we prefer not to, but maybe as an option instead of water suspension, or to stop water suspension because they got a civil penalty at one point and now they learn and they do want to work with us and get it done, we would like to propose initiating some additional fees in addition to water suspension that could prevent the non-compliance or decrease the number of non-compliance and have these customers work with us. We are still under the idea that we would like to use water suspension as the last resort, unless we have to. But to be able to do that, we need a little bit stronger enforcement to make sure that we can enforce these actions to property owners rather than penalizing the tenants who live in these complexes. These are the process improvements that we're proposing in the code changes ordinance that is going to come to you in September. In addition to that, there is some additional administrative workload coming from entering test results manually. That is a huge deal when you have more than 5,000 devices. And a lot of the other municipalities also adding some technological enhancements to their programs, such as customer portals, which gives the possibility to our customers to be interactively use the system, check out their test results, look at their previous year's history, and at the same time submit their new test results, which also takes a little bit of workload from us as well, instead of our staff manually entering each and every test result. So those are the proposed changes that will be coming your way. And this is my last slide that's coming up. It's only a timeline that I'd like to share with you on what we're thinking, how we're going to shape up this process changes if you were to accept our proposal. So we would like to bring the code changes to your approval in September. Then in October, we would like to do customer outreach to notify our customers about the process improvements in detail. This is planned through mail, email, website, on QR codes, on various communication materials that we share, as well as notifying the testers so they can contact with the customers that they work with. And so as much as possible, we will reach out to our customers to make sure they're aware of these changes that are coming up. At the same time, for us to be able to do the testing, if the customers do not do it within the given time frame, we will need to put out a request for proposal for a testing company that will work for us and do the testing. So that is planned to be done in October. In November and December of 2023, we plan to select the testing contractor, and at the same time, we plan to initiate billing codes for implementation of these backflow fees and fines within our utility billing system. In January is when we would like this new changes, if you would approve, to be effective. So the implementation of the process changes is going to start with the new year. And then throughout 2024, we plan to investigate what customer portals make sense to use, and then we're going to initiate the selection of those customer portals. And with that, I complete my presentation, and if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them for you.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
I've learned a lot in a short time.
Thank you so much.
Councillor Martin.
Yes, thank you. And I was going to ask you to go back to this very flow chart.
This one?
No, the one you were on, that one, yeah. So what I see here is that you've got some fines and you've got some new fees. And my question is, do you expect this program to pay for itself, or are you going to ask for additional funding for this process to be implemented?
I would like to answer your question to the extent that I do, but if Bob has any additional comments, he's welcome to take this stage. So the way I see this happening is we don't want to go into the business of doing this for our customers. So our goal is not to make money or to fund this program through these fees. But if it gets to a point where we have sufficient funding through these fees and fines, yes, that would be the goal. And I would very much like to use that money to support small businesses or any other properties that are having a hard time getting their backflow installed or taking care of their backflow. They could apply in some sort of a program that we could initiate. But to just answer your question simply, the goal is not to make money out of it. Our goal is to make sure that we discourage our customers from leaving it to us and making sure that they take care of their responsibility themselves with the testers that they choose.
Okay, so I did not really quite, I don't think you answered the same question that I was asking, because we never want to make money. We always just want to break even, right? But will the department need extra funds to implement this above what you expect the fees and penalties to bring in? And will you need extra staff, or is everything going to be taken care of by these outside contractors? And does the customer pay the outside contractor directly?
Mayor Peck and Council, so the goal here is to actually stop the bleeding right now. So this program, as it sits today, is costing us a lot of resources that we need to really walk back. So that's the purpose of what we're trying to do here. We've, in addition to having to really just almost overwhelm our environmental services budget with this program currently, we believe that we've actually had some staff leave because we've had to put so much of this work on them to make this, program viable without having to bring in other staff. So we actually did have to bring in other staff at this point. We've had to kind of ramp up our administrative capabilities. We're hoping to actually maybe walk that back a little bit with this program.
So how does that actually work? I mean, I'm sorry to be dense, but I'm being dense. The outside contractors, we're going to make people use outside contractors to do the testing, but don't we already do that?
There are two things that we hope will make a difference.
Okay.
The first is for those who don't want to or who are not organized enough to use the outside contractors can come into our portal. They can use our system and our contractors, pay the fee. It's usually around $150. There's about a $10 fee to use that portal. Those aren't costs that are different than what they're going to be paying if they're doing it themselves. We don't think it's that different. And they can let us do the work for them. The other side of it is those who don't comply, those who drag their feet forever. we still may have to suspend water service, but we would like to be able to do that and have a fine so that we don't have that repeat offender. So
Okay.
that's the purpose of the fine, the purpose of the portal, and the city retaining a backflow tester is to, for those who don't want to deal with those logistics, we'll deal with them through those contractors and a third-party portal.
Okay, I see how it's going to work, and it may increase compliance, but I am not hearing that the city does less work overall. So what work does not have to be done by the city because this system is in place?
So right now, I'll go into a little bit more detail. So right now, the way the process works is there is a lot of letter notification, one after another. And when we don't hear back, then our staff calls one by one over the phone. And if we can't reach to them, and even sometimes when we reach to them, our administrative staff calls 3 times. And then it escalates to our backflow program, our engineers and our scientists. And then we keep calling, we keep asking them to do their backflow testing. We never go into water service suspension. So this goes all the way to the end of the year. And when you consider more than 5,000 devices, that's a significant amount of work. What this new approach is going to provide us is that we're gonna do 1 letter notification and then a second letter that's violation because it's gonna be after the due date. And we're gonna give a certain amount of time after that violation again for them to do their testing. But if it's not done, then we are the ones who are working with an outside contract, giving a list to the contractor for them to call and schedule. The fees are gonna be charged through our utility billing automatically. And then because they pay for it, we are anticipating, there are examples in other cities, and it seems to be working fine and really good with them, with their compliance rating and the amount of workload decrease that they're having. What's gonna happen is that the customer is going to schedule with a tester for a test that they already paid us. Because we know the list of the people who did not comply and who are going to get tested by the tester, we know how much we're gonna pay the tester through the funds that we got from the customer.
Okay, that makes sense because it's a direct bill situation. They have already paid whether they schedule or not.
Exactly. If they don't schedule, it's their loss because they already pay for it. So we're hoping that they will want to schedule and make sure they use this service that we provide to them.
Okay.
So I think, if I can jump in real quick, I think the answer is we can't continue doing what we're doing because it's just not functioning operationally. To the point that in some of these cases, it actually will escalate all the way into my office. The intent of this is to reduce the workload and reduce the overall impact of the division.
Yeah,
Now,
I get it now.
At the end of the day, we're gonna have to learn through this, but we think this is a good step to take.
Right. So what you're doing is eliminating the repetitive touches.
Exactly.
Counselor Waters.
Thanks. What percentage of the 5,000 devices, or the approximate 5,000 devices, end up with the owners or the devices failing or the owners not complying?
Thank you for the question, Counselor, and I'm sorry I missed that before.
You're good.
So
I go by whatever up
the
here.
failed test, failed test is a different story than non-compliance because there's 2 kinds of non-compliance. One group is the ones that are not doing the testing.
So start there. What of the 5,000? How many are simply just not doing their job?
There is quite a few. What I can give you as an example, considering my background with the city not being so long. Last year in October, we had 70% compliance, and we have to comply with more than 90% by the end of December.
So that the difference between the 70 and the 90.
Yeah, is
that's
huge.
the burden.
That's
right?
the burden.
So one way to frame that is reducing our workload. The other way to frame that is simply putting accountability where it belongs.
Exactly.
Right? We've assumed all the responsibility and all the accountability for what the users are obligated to do to comply with state law and city ordinance. Is that true?
Yes.
That's a no-brainer, it seems to me. And whatever, it seems to me that I could ask for an estimated cost. That's going to be a swag, I'm guessing. you know.
We've started to collect some data this year, so hopefully we'll be.
But it seems to me
throwing
that the pricing on this, kind of going to Councilmember Martin's questions, the pricing on this ought to reflect the actual cost to the city, because every taxpayer in town.
Right now.
Yeah,
Yes.
and, you know, everybody who pays $1 in tax is subsidizing those who are not complying. So it seems to me it's a no-brainer for me in terms of saying yes. The only thing I would add is we ought to reflect the real cost. There's a real benefit to users, right, by what you're setting up, and there ought to be a real cost to them if they don't comply. It's in everybody's interest. It's a health and safety issue as well as a financial and workload one.
Exactly, Counselor, and that brings up this additional thing that I'd like to say, that right now, we're proposing up to $1,000 on civil penalties. We want to see if it works. If it doesn't work, there is a chance that we might come back in the next couple of years to raise that penalty.
And you might hear, or we might hear from somebody that says, how dare you add another fee, right? It seems to me the response to that is, how dare you not comply with what's a state regulation
And
it's in
risk
the
our
health and
public's
safety
health.
interest of everybody in town. Thanks.
Councillor Yarbrough.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. This is one of the few times that I actually know what you're talking about. You did that good a job. Yeah. Well, I rent a townhome where they do backflow constantly. And I know you say annually. So what is the difference between the ones who have homeowners association? Do you have more of a problem with them? Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh. Okay.
A lot of our frequent flyers that we deal with are HOA managers. Partly, sometimes the HOA managers who manage these properties don't know what backflow is or what they need to do. Sometimes the management company changes, they don't notify us, we can't get to them, and the new management company has no idea what they're supposed to do, and that sort of thing. Or some of them already know that we try not to do water suspension, and they do use that to the extent possible. And that keeps us in the loop of calling them and asking them to get it done. So this is, in a way, in my mind, is going to be a good way of handling that, because once we charge and give them the option to get that taken care of, hopefully it's going to make it easier. And if they don't really schedule the tests or be there when the tester goes out there to do the test with the civil penalty or water suspension, then they have an explanation to make to whoever the property owner is. So hopefully they're going to be more responsive with these.
So we need to put the pressure on the frequent flyers?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I was just wondering, because I know at my place they have, they do the backflow at least twice a year. And so, yeah,
Well,
that's what I said.
amazing.
I know, and I was like, when you said once annual, I was like, what? Why are they doing it twice? So anyway, I was wondering if there was a huge difference between the homeowners association properties and those who are individually owned. And so that's really good to know. So putting the pressure on the HOAs in general.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Right. The tenants aren't responsible.
Right, right.
If it's a multifamily complex, it's either the property owner, or if they have an HOA management, it's the HOA manager that's responsible to take care of this.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing no one else in the queue, can I have a motion to accept this recommended approach for the backflow? Second. So it's been moved by Councillor Martin and seconded by both Yarbrough and Hidalgo Ferry. We'll go with Yarbrough. Let's vote. That carries unanimously. Thank you so much for this presentation and for the whole department that is sitting behind you.
Thank you.
We're now at the 2023 potential ballot questions. The the Arts and Entertainment Central ballot item. I'll read. Yes. So, is
Yes,
Special Counsel Wiseman
is here.
welcome?
Okay, I'm gonna share this presentation, yeah?
Yeah, can you all hear me? Is this working?
Yes.
Now it's, no,
Yes.
it's working? Okay.
Okay, thanks, John.
So, Mayor, Council, do you have the driver? And then we're gonna probably be toggling in and out of this, Sandy, because I think I'm gonna hit each one of these for a decision point as we're going through it, so. Okay, good. If he has a question, perfect. So obviously, based on the conversation that we had with the council in the last meeting, one of the things that we're looking at is now we have to take action in terms of determining what's going to be on the ballot for the November election. As you can see, we have all of the items that you've listed. As you know from the council comm, we have a separate item for Arts and Entertainment Center project. We then have one for the branch library. We'll probably want council's decision points on those two. And then when we move into the recreation component and the Y component, I've got some additional information to provide you regarding the Y conversations. But at the same time, you have a number of choices to make. And we outlined those in the council comm. You can choose to put, and we'll just move through that as we get there. So as you can see, the numbers that we have here, a lot of this is going to look familiar, so I'm going to move through with some pace. This is really looking at the total amount for all 4 projects. As you can see, in this case, we have the 2 numbers separated for the new recreation center and the Y, but there is a ballot question to have both of those together. So we'll start off with the Arts and Entertainment Center. Most of this is information that you already have seen. As you will know in the ballot language, this is contingent on private fundraising efforts of $35 million prior to funding from the city. And we worked with that language on a number of occasions. I want to thank Dee and Jim and Chris and everyone for jumping in at the last minute. What I really want to point out is really this slide. So it's a 1.9 mil levy. It lasts for 20 years. So this is actually related to the term of the debt. So once the 35 million is raised and made available to the city, that is a key point in this. There have been some questions to say, well, what if they commit the funds, but as we saw during COVID, people committed funds and then weren't able to do it. The key piece is the 35 million has to be made available to the city before the tax will start. So that means possession, essentially. You can see at the bottom, on a $500,000 home, the annual property tax is $67. On $1 million non-residential property, it's $551, and then the sales tax component is 9 cents. So at this point, we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have regarding the Arts and Entertainment Center. But I think I will turn it over to council to say, do you all want us to place this item on the ballot?
Councilor Martin.
Yes, one thing that I think is not on these slides, the deferred taxation is really important, I think, because the public is not in a mood to pay more taxes right now. But the other thing that makes this particular proposal different is that it has the potential to bring revenue into the city from other places, to increase visitation, to increase, well, I guess visitation still, either short-term visitation where people come buy tickets and then go away again, or where people come to the city because they want to see us performance and stay here and spend money for even longer. But it has both of those potentials. None of the other proposals have that aspect to it. I would like to move that we refer this to the ballot. Obviously, we can have more questions, but I might as well get the motion out there.
Seconded.
Okay, Counselor Martin made the proposal to move the Arts and Entertainment Center as stated in our packet to the ballot. And it was seconded by Counselor McCoy. Let's open it up for discussion. All those in favor of moving it to the ballot? Let's open it up for discussion. Counselor Waters.
Thanks, Mayor Peck. I tried to get in there and second that motion. I support putting this on the ballot. So my question isn't about that, but I'm going to restate the concern that I had shared earlier, Harold. Just in terms of cost estimates, and I know without a crystal ball, nobody, not you, not Jim, as good as he is with what he does, can forecast what inflation's going to do between now and the time $35 million is raised, right? Because we don't know how long that's going to take. But let's just guess, right? 5 years to raise $35 million that's escrowed, right, and in the bank before we have to go to the bond market to sell a bond. My concern is that $80 million, that combination of 45 and 35, whenever that time comes, people are just going to be disappointed. It is not going to pay for what we envision now as an Center for Arts and Entertainment. That's the concern. And part of it's fueled by the other numbers we're going to talk about in a few minutes, right? 65 or 67, whatever the first number was for the rec center on the west side is now 72. The library was 22, it's now 27. Based on reasonable estimates of inflation and, how that's going to impact the actual cost of construction. But we didn't make any adjustment on this one. My concern is that it just kind of sets up some disappointment 5 years down the road or whenever that time is. People assuming they could get one thing and it's just not going to buy what they thought. What we approved tonight on this agenda, a loan of $200,000 from the Fleet Fund for the maintenance facility at U Creek is a reflection of, what some council may end up having to deal with whenever whenever the time comes that we have to sell bonds. Is there a rationale for, I don't think this fails or passes based on 45 and 35 versus 50 and 40, or I don't think it's going to pass based on 45. It's going to be pass or fail based on how strong a campaign. So why not offer a more realistic estimate based on the calculation of inflation?
So I think that was actually a policy conversation that we had with you all in the last, I think we had the same conversation, and the question was, well, what would you add? And I said, probably $40 million. And are there other opportunities to bridge some of those gaps? Yes, I think a few things that we know is both of the locations that we're looking at. We talked about the sugar mill, and then we talked about the steam area. Those areas are in opportunity zones and enterprise zones, which can leverage more of the private money in terms of how you're approaching it. I believe I also said, there will have to be decision points made when you get to the cost to go, what do we want to do and how do we want to spend it? So those are obvious questions, but, to answer your question, if we said, what would we add? Probably around $40 million. I think there are ways to bridge that gap depending on when that time occurs. It's hard to say what the opportunity zone legislation is going to be. And so there are different approaches that can be taken. I would kind of say that at the end of the day, that's a policy question for council in terms of how do you all want to approach it. I believe in the last session, the council said we wanted to really kind of hold to these numbers. And so, that's why we stayed here.
We're holding to, on the other two projects, or the other two questions, we're holding to numbers that reflect an estimate of the effects of inflation, right?
Correct.
But we're not on this one. That's the point. That's the concern. And, I'm going to vote to support this. I guess I just want to be on the record that I have a concern. And some 7 people are going to sit up here at some point in time, I hope they have to down the road, and decide how are we going to augment. And maybe the financing mechanisms that through, you know, tax increment financing and special districts and all the things that come together, get that done. But I do have a concern, so.
Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I'm going to answer this as is generally my style and just answer all of it all at once unless there's something catastrophically different about the YMCA proposal that's coming forward. I will say I will be supporting the Performance Arts Center or Arts and Entertainment Center initiative as a referral to the ballot. I'll be supporting the library funding as a referral to the ballot. And then I've been convinced by a member of public as well as Dr. Waters or Councilmember Waters in a recommendation to combine the rec center and YMC proposal as one ballot question at this point. And so I don't have to ring in on each individual item as they come forward. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
The one thing I wanted to say on this is, so there are two components to this, and can you take me off the screen? Because I'm probably going to need D. I may need D on some of this, and Jim. And it's important for us to get this out now. When you look at the total amounts and the mill levies that we have to put, it is as succinct as we can get it in the ballot language. I want everybody to understand that the Tabor notice that we're required to put out, and I'll use this one, as we're putting this in, and it's probably as good a time as any to just bring this out, Jim. Whatever you put on the ballot, we have to assume that it's going to pass as we're setting the Tabor notices based on the requirement, because if we don't get that number right and estimate it appropriately, it could create issues down the road in terms of repayment or Tabor refunds. And so just know that we're going to bring the Tabor notice back to you all when it's ready to really work and explain all of those issues. In addition to that, in this question, Jim and Dee have been spending a lot of time talking about estimating what the revenues and the expenses will be when the $35 million is raised, because that's another component of the Tabor notice, correct? Looking into the future.
Well, there's the aspect of the ballot question itself begins with Tabor required wording that says, shall Longmont taxes be increased a certain amount annually in the first full year. And that first full year is the first full year that both taxes would be in effect in the case of any of these projects. And so this one, of course, is going to have both taxes deferred off into a year that's unknown, which in this one is probably the hardest one, if not the combined rec one. But they're both going to be challenging because we would have something out into the future. And the farther out into the future we have to estimate, the harder it is to estimate. And so we have to be very conservative, and we'll be using large numbers, which will seem large to the voters as well. But we're doing that to try to avoid putting the city into a situation where it would have to deal with Tabor refunds if we exceed those estimates. So that happens here in the ballot question wording, and then in the Tabor notice that we will have to prepare next month. Does that normally go to the city council?
Jim, it does not require council approval, whether you've typically given it to council members. I don't.
We can bring it. I don't think we have in the past, right. But we can do that. But we'll have to prepare that next month, which will be 4 to 5 years of fiscal year spending estimates, which is it's a number or an amount that is defined under Tabor, which in a sense is all of the governmental type revenues of the city. So that's how we base our Tabor reserves each year. And that number is currently, in the last 5 years, it's ranged from 150 to 180 million or more. And it can be impacted by these COP financings that we will do between now and then, assuming each of these were to pass. So we would have a couple of those happening in the first couple of years to fund the library and the rec center versus some of the others might be delayed. So those numbers could get inflated. Fiscal year spending could jump quite a bit because of that revenue from the COPs. So anyhow, it's not impossible. It's just a challenge.
And I just didn't want to, as I was talking through this, I was remembering those conversations. So I called an audible to say, we need to bring this up because I didn't want you to be surprised with, it doesn't change the numbers. It really isn't the Tabor notice. And if we were in another state that didn't have this, it would be a fairly simple exercise. It's just adding complexity to it. And I do want to bring that back so we can work you all through it. So if you all are ready to vote on this, then you can vote. If not, then we can.
We have one more comment from Councilor Martin.
Yeah, I'd like to address the remarks that Dr. Waters made, which are that I do not think that we should have an expectation that the tax-paying public would pay any more than what we're asking for now. This is a revenue positive thing. We have a lot of interest in it by private investors other than the organization that's running the capital campaign for $35 million. And so the expectation for the city would be that during this interim period of time while the capital campaign is running, we are seeking either another private partner as an investor, or we are seeking grant money for this program. And that's why it's a good number. It's not, this is a number that the people can bear, 3 to 5 years in the future as a property tax increase. But I would not have the expectation that the people will then, that we're going to come back to that particular well. And that's why I think that we should be looking at the numbers in terms of what they approved when we did the surveys, rather than the possible total cost that we shouldn't ask them to pay any more than that.
So I will weigh in. I will refer this to the ballot, but two things. If in fact we have someone who, as a private investor, that donates land, then that land cost would not be part of what we need to assume. But I do hesitate in the assumption that we are going to make a lot of money on this based upon the way things are going in Colorado, with the Broomfield Center closing, with the Buell Theater not getting as much revenue as they usually do, or participation, and the Boulder Dinner Theater closing. I think we need to watch also the environment and what's going on in the industry. It doesn't mean that it won't be viable if we get the correct partner who can help us work through it. So there's a lot of assumptions, there's a lot of wish lists, but I do think it's up to the public for them to let us know what we want, what they want us to do. So I will be referring this to the ballot. Seeing no other comments, let's vote. And that carries unanimously. Thank you.
Again, we'll go over the library. So there's two components to the library. You see the additional branch library with the debt service associated, the mill levy to cover it, and then the annual operating and non-operating cost associated with the sales tax. So the library is going to have both a property tax and a sales tax component associated with it. In addition, there's going to be the preferred level of service for the broader library that was indicated in the library feasibility study, and that's what you see in terms of the sales tax increase at the next level. So the 1 mill levy for the branch library, again, is going to be a 20-year sunset on that. and that will begin in 2024. And then the sales tax will be ongoing to pay for those services, and that'll be 0.15 again, beginning in January 2024 if it passes. I'm not sure what happened to the formatting on this one, but a $500,000 house would pay $35 a year for this. A $1 million non-residential property, is that right, Jim? 290? Yeah, 290. And then the additional sales tax on a $100 purchase would be 15 cents. Be happy to answer any questions on this.
So this is ordinance 2023-37. Do we have, I would like to offer a friendly amendment to this ordinance in that it says, let me read this first of all. My concern is that we don't have a site for this library, this branch library. And that has been an issue on other initiatives or ordinances that we wanted to put on the ballot that people wondered where it was going to be. I still think that it should be an annex to the recreation center. And the reason for that is the cost of property to put another brick and mortar building up. Do we have that? Do we have that amount, that dollar amount in this total? Are we going to repurpose another building? Would it not be easier to put the whole cost immediately up front and make it an annex to the rec center?
So I think when we looked at this, obviously that is the intent in terms of the branch library is to have it connected with the rec center. During the last council meeting, I think there was a recommendation from the Library Advisory Board where they wanted to have this question separate from the recreation. If you remember, I think the Recreation Advisory Board wanted everything connected with each other. And so in this case, you know, I think I wouldn't probably recommend that you say it's connected to a recreation center, because if for some reason the recreation center fails, then you're going to be in a different position if this one happens to pass. And so the way the wording is structured is that it does give us the ability, and I'm looking at Jim, it gives us the ability that in the event that that happens, we can still move forward with the library branch.
Okay, that makes sense. So do we have a motion for 2023-37? All right, so the library, ordinance library, for the library funding is 2023-37, moved by Councilor Hidalgo Faring, seconded by Councilor Waters. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, let's vote. Thank you. And that passed unanimously.
All right, so I'm going to need Jim to help me deal with some of this as we move through these slides. So the first piece is the recreation center. Again, the number is $72 million cost. The annual debt service would be $5.5 million. It's a 2.78 mil levy. I hate reading off slides, but I actually want to do this for the record and make sure that these numbers are out there. The annual operating and non-operating costs, you can see at $3 million, and then the sales tax associated with the operating is 11 cents. So when you look at this, again, the mill levy for the construction of the facility is 20 years. That's going to be the sunset on it. That will begin in 2024. The sales tax increase begins in 2025, and that's important. The reason it's not beginning at the same time is because we're not going to need the staff in 2024, so it'll begin at a later date. Here's where I need Jim to help me do this. So we have been collecting impact fees to handle the need based on growth for recreation center, and there's about $5 million in that. what we're going to need to do in this is the 72 million in the ballot initiative, we will need to put, he structured it where we put the $5 million of the impact fees into the new recreation center because that more clearly meets the impact fee requirement. And we need to use 5 million for the improvements to the Quail campus that we talked about. Did I get that right?
You got it right, but it's more like a proposal. It's
Yeah.
not a we have to thing. It's,
Yeah.
we have $5 million that we have to use on a rec center. We have to use on a facility that's going to have increased levels of services, driven by population growth. So we can't use that $5 million for Quail Rec Center improvements because that's not increasing capacity. What we are proposing is that we leverage that 5 million by putting it towards the rec center at Dry Creek, still issuing $72 million of COPs, and then taking 5 million from that 72 million of COP funding and using it for Quail Rec Center Improvement Project, which was one of the original projects that was brought to you last fall. And Jeff could explain more specifically what those improvements would be. He's here tonight for that purpose, if you need that.
And I should have remembered what Jim told me. It's a proposal. If council doesn't want to do that, you don't have to do that. We would just take the 5 million, apply it to the 72 million, and reduce the debt that we were going to issue. So that's one option. If you want to invest in Quail, you can take the proposal that we made that allows us to use the 5 million and still issue the same debt, but actually do more work.
The thing is, we do need to use the 5 million. We're collecting the money, and we have to technically use it by a certain point in time. And we've been doing this for 5 years, I think, now that we've been collecting these revenues. And so we should put it towards the rec center if it gets approved.
So does anyone up here on council want to hear what those improvements would be? Just a bullet point list of what you're thinking about for the Quail improvements. I would.
I don't want to change my opinion.
No, but I think for on the record, I would, within the
Mayor, members of council, Jeff Friesner, Director of Recreation and Culture. We have a list of things that we would want to have done at the rec center to update it. It would include painting the entire facility, bringing it up to more of the 2023-24 standard of colors. We would look at renovations in the locker rooms that would include opening the bays that are small where the lockers, opening those up so that there's more room and more access to locker rooms. We would also renovate the showers so that we don't have gang showers anymore, that we'd be able to provide individual showers for everyone. We would look at the replacement of the small water slide in the leisure pool to more of a more exciting, appealing type of draw to that facility. We would also expand in the lobby more cardio equipment. Right now we are pretty maxed out where we have equipment stationed all around the facility, and that by far is one of the biggest demands that we have at that location. And then finally, we have some groundwater issues that will need to be addressed to protect the building for the long run.
Thank you, and I think that those improvements, just my opinion, would be greatly appreciated while we are constructing or getting the next rec center going. So, thank you. So do we need a motion on to use that 5 million for, or can we just give you direction?
Well, we don't need a motion yet. I mean, I think I need to go through the why, and then we need to go to the consolidated. I think it's more recognizing you have two choices. You can take the 72 and reduce it by 5, or you can take the other side of the proposal to make the improvements to Quail. But let me go,
Okay.
and well, you know, maybe we actually deal with that piece now, because that'll make the other questions easier.
Okay. So, I suppose we should have a motion rather than just direction. Counselor Waters.
I move we accept Jim's proposal to finance the new, assuming new rec center gets on the ballot and it gets passed. We finance that with 60, whatever, 2 plus 5, and use $5 million of new bond-funded resources, capital improvements on the rec center.
So keeping the 72, but
Yes.
doing the conversion. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Counselor Waters made the motion to take 5 million out of the 72 and put it on Quail Rec Center improvements? No, I'm
Yes.
sorry, I said that wrong.
You said it right. And we take, and then we take 5 million out of the impact fees and put it to the
Yes.
new rec center.
Yes. Seconded by Counselor Yarbrough. Any discussion? Well, so the motion, okay, go ahead, Counselor Waters, say it again.
That we go to the ballot and ask for authorization to sell $72 million in bonds. That of that $72 million, we use whatever we need minus $5 million
No.
to build a rec center.
Can I stop you?
Yes, you can.
But we're not asking for authorization to issue debt in any of these questions.
No.
Remember, we're doing certificates of
All right,
participation.
so let me back up. We go to the ballot and ask for authorization to sell bonds?
The tax increase.
The tax increase, thank you. To finance the estimated cost of a new rec center. And we add to that $5 million of impact fees and make $5 million available for upgrades to the current Quail Rec Center.
Yes.
Did you get that, Crystal? Thank you. That was seconded by Counselor
Make it look
Yarbrough.
smart, Crystal.
Okay, let's vote. Passes unanimously, thank you.
Yeah, I didn't make that easy on you. I'm running low on gas right about now.
These next two will be easy.
So the YMCA. So the project cost, as we talked about, was 12 million. That is 2 mills for 3 years. The annual property tax on that of a $500,000 home is $7,150, and on $1 million residential property is $580. Council had a lot of questions the last time regarding this issue, and so I've been evaluating it. Jeff got back. We had a meeting with Chris Coker from the Y. Chris is here tonight to answer some questions that may have been more specific to the Y in case you need him to answer it. But we begin working on a memorandum of understanding that actually we want to have ready by the time we get into second reading to clarify some of these issues. So I wanted to go over that, and that'll start answering some questions. So obviously we would contribute the 12 million. The Y would provide a minimum of 100 affordable housing units. In our conversations, the Y will also attempt to include assisted living affordable units in that 100. It is incredibly hard for us to put a number to that right now because that takes into account Medicaid and Medicare and other issues, and based on laws, we just wanted to know that that's going to be something we're going to focus on. They are looking, we try to talk about the type of units, but again, it's too hard to understand where the LIHTC world's going to be, but definitely family is something that they're looking at. We'll provide the land at the current location of Centennial Pool. The Y property will be donated to the city. As we talked about in that, that could be utilized for attainable housing. As we work through the memorandum of understanding, we're going to equate a value to that because there's actually a value coming back to the city in terms of what we can do if council wants to build attainable housing there. The Longmont Housing Authority will actually be the property manager for the affordable housing units on that property. We presented in the last information a series of rates in terms of what people will pay. We forgot to include that in this PowerPoint. What we've agreed is that rate structure will stay in place as long as the components of that rate structure will stay in place as long as the Y and the city continue to partner in that facility. What we're really talking about is there's a point 15 to 20 years out where you have to get into capital replacement, and so that will still be in play. But like we do in the recreation center, we have to evaluate those rates and charges on an annual basis based on the inflationary impacts that we see. That is no different than what we do in our rec center. There was a question from Councilmember Yarborough and Councilmember Hidalgo Faring about people being able to use the service for free. One of the things that I wanted to point out is we don't have free service in our facilities. When we look at that, we look at scholarships and other things that are available for people in order to get into those facilities. In talking to Chris today, the Y does have an existing scholarship program that they use so people can utilize that facility. My recommendation to council would be is that if you put this on the ballot and it passes, we need to start looking at a scholarship program, and it probably needs to be broader than just these projects. When I'm looking at generally what we're doing as an organization, I think in terms of putting an equity lens on it and understanding the needs in our community, I would suggest that if it passes, we look at a scholarship program that can be used to offset the cost for those individuals that meet certain income qualifications. The example that I used with Councilmember Yarborough when she asked me a question on this is, and I've actually used this with staff, is if my kids were utilizing this facility, my kids should not utilize this facility for free. I do have the ability to cover those costs, and so it's easier to stay with this rate structure and then augment with a scholarship program that can address these issues. And so we'll continue doing that. The Y did agree that in terms of the way their structure's set up, because I know there's some concerns about, how will this operate. Today, Chris did agree that the city manager or their designee will serve on the branch council. So the branch council, the way the Y is structured is they have a master Y council, and then each facility has a branch council. In terms of this location on the branch council, they said the city manager or the designee will sit on that. Part of why we use that language is because too often when we're very specific on positions and we restructure, it creates problems. This just puts it in me or my designee. If council chooses to put this on the ballot, it probably would make sense for me to start in that world, especially because of the connection to the affordable housing piece and the work that's going to be done. They also lost my place. A designee from the housing division or the Longmont Housing Authority will also serve on the branch council because of the issues that are associated with that. Again, that's we think that's important in terms of how we manage the long-term investment and being able to answer questions from our community if this is put on the ballot and it passes. It will provide for expansion of childcare opportunities. The question is how much, because what we've shown you in the graphic is here's the spot. You need to get into that detailed design work to really understand what the number is going to be. There was also a question that came in to Jeff about naming the facility. I think work has to be done on that, but Chris did indicate that they will recognize the city's investment into that facility in some form. Again, don't know how, but that was in there. One of the key pieces in this as part of the agreement is when the work's being done, the city pass holders, Chris has agreed that they will have access to the existing Y while we're doing the work if you have to demolish if it's put on and it passes and you demolish the Centennial Pool. If we were to do that on their own, we wouldn't have a place for folks to go, but they've agreed that they could actually utilize the Y pool during that time. And they will provide free open skating during the holidays, or we will provide open skating during the holidays. And then they will partner to offer community holiday events and activities. We have some more work to do on this, but I think this is answering some of the questions. One question that came out, and I'm probably going to need Chris to help me answer this, was the religious aspect of the Y. Many years ago, the Y actually shifted off of that, and they're now branded as the Y, not the YMCA in terms of that piece. And Chris can provide more details in terms of that issue and what that really looks like. Part of what we're working off of is this is also similar to something that they're working with in Johnstown in terms of how the city is partnering with the Y. So we're seeing more of this in different communities. Chris, Jeff, did I miss anything? So, we're at the point of probably the most difficult decision, unless you all want to combine it. As Jim indicated, the combined ballot language, as you can see from your packet, is pretty lengthy. It does represent what we have in the individual ballot language. So at this point, we're here to answer any questions you all have, or how you all want to proceed.
Councillor Martin, just a moment. I'm going to ask one. In this initial concept plan, is any of this building concept on park property?
Well, it is, and that's the point associated in the ballot language. You actually have that question embedded, correct, Jim? That question is embedded in the park language so that is embedded in the ballot question so that we can transfer that property.
Without having another vote?
Correct.
Okay. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. This is small, as I understand that the nature of the affordable housing is a little bit up in the air right now, and I may be dating myself, but traditionally the Y provided transitional affordable housing, or what would be called that today. Are we talking really about permanent housing that's, someone leases it and they live there as long as they comply with the terms or die? As opposed to, transitional housing with time limits on it or anything like that?
No, because this is one of the key provisions that we put in this question too related to the Y is that the tax will commence once the Y receives low-income housing tax credits from the state, because that's a significant component to building this. So in that case, there wasn't a conversation of it being transitional, was there? It was more like what we're looking at Hover in terms of the family housing, not transitional housing.
Okay. I just wanted to know.
Councillor Waters.
Thanks, Mayor Peck. It'd be helpful as we get questions that you made reference to the faith-based, or I don't know if it's a religious connection, but just how Chris responds. How does Chris respond? So it helped for me to know how Chris responds.
That's part of why he's here, because I couldn't answer it in detail. So Chris.
So I was wondering if the Y still stands for young.
Okay. First off, I'm bringing pizza next time because this is a long meeting, maybe a sandwich. But it's an artifact. That's a leftover artifact. This Y is 150 years old next year, your local Y. And the Y started in London in 1844 during the Industrial Revolution. And they did it because they had this religious bent, because when young men were coming off the farms, they went to London and there was gambling, drinking, and women showing their ankles. So they couldn't have that. They had to do something about it. But the Y has left its religious roots long decades and decades ago because it's more about social change. It's more about community welfare, things like that. So what happened in 1844 to now is so different.
Chris, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
The status of the Y, does the Y exist as a 501c3? I think that by itself is a good place to start.
Right. It's what it is. It's ecumenical.
Governed by, how is it governed? There's a board of directors.
Yeah, there's a board of directors. Every YMCA is the Y is a federated organization. So we have we're our own corporation. The Y did that because the Y should reflect the community it's in. So with that end, we have councils for each YMCA because my Y in Cheyenne is very different than the Y in Boulder. And so the Y in Longmont must have its own unique characteristics. That's why we have a council, and 6 of the council members sit on the board so that there's real authority and power there to do what they need to do to serve
Is that
the
the board
community.
that Harold was talking about? I think those are really going to be really important considerations going along.
Yeah, it has to, the community needs its say. The community owns the YMCA.
Yeah, so I have maybe just not questions but observations. Our cost at $12 million. Well, maybe I know we've got a lot of design and conceptual work to do, but is it fair to say that the net of this, or the result, the outcome, will be a state-of-the-art recreation center?
Child care, rec, affordable housing.
Yeah, expanded child care capacity in the city, along with the 100 affordable housing units, in addition to the 7 acres on the current site?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. But what it is everything that we have currently has to fit where it's going to go. The site for the Y, I like the site that we're in, but I think the highest and best use of the property is such that this switch goes. The other thing is if we build on the current site, we lose those 120 childcare spots, affordable childcare for the city, and that's not okay.
Yeah. So for 12% of the cost, 16% of the cost of building a rec center, a comparable, I suppose, although without a sheet of ice, I'm guessing, maybe not comparable, maybe less comprehensive rec center on the west side of town, for 16% of that cost, we partner with the Y to get a state-of-the-art facility with everything else we've talked about.
Yeah,
Seems like a pretty good investment to me.
To give you the numbers, when we originally started this, when we polled it, remember we polled $8 million, and that was to convert it to court space.
Yep.
I think we originally estimated the pool cost to be around 15 to renovate it. Jeff refined that number. Just to keep it as a pool would be about $23 million.
So twice what it would cost.
Not including ice and not including affordable housing.
Yeah. I just think this is again a no-brainer. Yeah. So I really appreciate the opportunity to cast a vote on this.
Any other questions I might be able to answer?
I just want to thank you for choosing Longmont.
We've been here with the Lehman family Y forever. So we really want to be here, and we want to serve the community in the best way we can.
Thank you.
So I'm turning it over to you all now. You can choose to place those on individually, combined, one, not the other.
My question to you is that it came up that we should put these on as combined. Let's have a discussion. Let's just start one by one going down the road to get everyone's opinion on this. It's pretty important. So, Councilor Yarbrough, do you want to start? Do you have an opinion on whether we should combine the Y and the rec center on one ballot issue, or should we separate them? It's going to be tricky. Yeah, do you want to turn it on? Okay, Councilor Hidalgo-Farring.
Thank you. I think hearing from members who are, part of the board, even though they were speaking on their personal behalf, and not as board members, but just bringing in that insight, emails that I've received from members of the community who are in support of seeing these two together. I did write it down. I really like, I believe it was Scott Conlon's, better together. I think I like that. I think it would streamline the process. It's under the same topic. So yes, I support putting those two items together on the ballot.
Okay. Counselor McCoy?
I would support exactly what Councilmember Hidalgo was pointing out, that they're better together, and I think that the community sees that, and it would give some advantage to the whole question and streamline it. So I'll be supporting it together.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem? Okay. Counselor Martin?
Yeah, I have terrible fears about this because I think we could end up with nothing because of sticker shock. And but I see that I'm already outvoted, so I might as well allow a consensus among the council. So I won't oppose it.
Okay, Counselor Waters?
Yeah, anyway, this is unanimous. I think I think the chances of succeeding are enhanced for both proposals if we put them together.
Okay. So I will go with the majority. Can we make a motion? I move putting these items. Turn on your mic.
There we go.
Counselor Hidalgo Ferry.
Okay, so I move passage of the resolution or motion to have the two items combined on our ballot.
Seconded.
Okay, Counselor McCoy, I heard Tim Waters first, so I'm gonna go with him. So resolution 2023-65 was, no,
Well, that's, yeah, but we want, that's what's up
okay,
there. We want
that's
to
not
amend
right.
ordinance
It-
2023-39.
39, it's the last one. Okay, so this is ordinance 2023-39 concerning funding recreation facilities, including the construction of a recreation center at Dry Creek Community and in partnership with the YMCA. I'm sorry, with the Y. So that was moved by Counselor Hidalgo Faring, seconded by Counselor Waters. Any more discussion? Counselor Yarbrough, did you want to weigh in? No? Okay, let's vote. That passes unanimously. Thank you. That was very interesting, heavy discussion.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
So we are now at final call, public invited to be heard. Is there anybody in the public that would like to address council? Are they leaving? Yep. Okay, seeing no one, I will close final call, public invited to be heard. We're now at mayor and council comments. Any comments from councilors? I don't remember that motion ever being made.
I'd like to reintroduce next time's retreat being a
Seeing no council comments.
Oh, no, wait, hold on. I had something.
Oh, McCoy, I'm so sorry. Councilor McCoy.
I put something in the chat as well for staff to pluck out of there. But it's what I was going to talk about was the Gaelic football and hurling tournament at Sandstone Ranch, August 18th through the 20th. They're looking for volunteers, and they are also selling tickets. I received this information from Sal Monterano, a community member, and just passing this on there, that it's something that's going on at Sandstone Ranch, and it's kind of a unique situation. They're claiming it's out of Denver, but it is really out of Longmont, and it is an international hurling and Gaelic football tournament. So it's going to be a kind of a big deal. And I just wanted to let people know that that is occurring on August 18th through the 20th, and they're looking for volunteers, and they also have ticket sales going on. So I put that in the chat so that people, so that we could pass that along if people wanted to know.
Thank you, Counselor McCoy. I also want to add that we went to the Nepali Jafra event that was held at the museum a couple weeks ago. It was completely packed with standing room only, and it is an annual event. And I am so happy that we have the Nepalese contingent in our society, in our city. So it was great. City manager remarks.
Mayor, Council, just an update on, you have your pre-session next week on August 22nd. We're going to need to schedule an executive session on an affordable and attainable housing project. And we may need an oil and gas on that one. So that'll be the 22nd. On the 29th, you all have a pre-session on equity training. And I say this because we were trying to figure out our evaluations because we plugged them in for August. It looks like we're going to have to slide a little bit to September. So I will be September 5th. Eugene will be September 12th, and the judge will be September 19th, and we'll start getting that information out to you. So you are going to have a span of executive session early meetings, just based on where we are.
So the only thing that I wanted to put on the pre-session, and I can ask it now if that's okay with council, is going to be about the I'm sorry. I just lost my train. It's very late. I'm sorry. I'll put it in an email.
Okay. One of the things
too
we
late
did
to
do
think.
is, we were thinking about this, we did provide you with the information via email from Valerie regarding the goal setting session and the different pieces. If we could get some time, you know, I don't want to invade your pre-session, but if you all want to chat about that a little bit, that would be great, because as I'm preparing the budget, I am working off of that document and working on how we frame it. So just want to get some feedback. If you all have feedback for us ahead of time, please email us so we can look at that, so we can continue refining it.
If I can pose my questions through Sandy and have it sent out to council, I have no problem canceling the pre-session. It
Well,
sounds like it's a loaded night.
If you need the pre-session, that's fine. We were just wondering if we could get some time to talk about council goals and what we put in, and then if you had something else. We just need feedback. But we can talk about that later.
Okay, let's talk about it tomorrow.
Okay.
All right, city attorney.
No comments, Mayor.
Thank you. So can I have a motion to adjourn? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Second. Aye, and opposed, no. We're adjourned.
Thank you all for being so flexible. I'll be back next week.
Thank you. We'll look forward to seeing you here.
I look forward to seeing you all.